What is up, everybody? Welcome to Stat Diggers, giving an early look for UFC Vegas 37, an early look because this card is going to be next week. We're having a week off here, but we wanted to give an extra early look for all you guys out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly do a recap of last night, and then we are going to get into the card. We have 15 fights, so definitely bear with us. We'll be putting some timestamps as well. 15 fights. It was definitely a grind. I was up all night last night trying to get stuff done. I know Weezy was as well, and then all day today, and there were still a couple fights that I was not able to get to. But looking forward to seeing what spots stick out, and I guess we'll start with Weezy here. What is up, Weezy? And kind of give a recap of last night. How'd you do, and how'd you like the card?
Well, 2 weeks ago was a really rough card for pretty much everybody, so I was a little bit gun shy coming up this week. So I stayed small, but my ass shaving of the week, Molly McCann came through with flying colors there. I wanted to give you guys a pick that would have a little bit of meat on the bone there, so I took Molly at underdog odds at minus 105, cashed a 1.5 unit bet on that, and then in addition to that, I'm always giving out a 4-leg greasy parlay at the beginning of Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy every week. I do that for my guy Hammer and Hog, who always asks for that. That one cashed again. So got a 4-leg parlay that came through that was untracked for a half unit that brought me up a unit, and then another 1.5 on Molly. I picked Brunson to win, so it was a really good day for me. But the great thing about doing this show, Brady, is that, no matter how well you did, you're not going to break yourself. You're not going to break your arm patting yourself on the back after a good performance, because we had to get right back to work to be ready for tonight, man. 15 fights coming up 2 weeks from now. Probably a few of them will be canceled by then, but I had a lot of data entry to do, a lot of spreadsheets to make, a lot of film to watch, but I got it all done, and I'm ready to talk 15 fights with everybody tonight. And I know that you are too, buddy.
15 fights. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Some fights are very good on the card. Some fights are not so good. We'll talk about that one soon. But yeah, I had a pretty solid night myself. It was definitely nice to bounce back. My big play was on Jack Shore, 5 units, minus 385. Some people were like, man, why are you laying 5 units on a minus 385 favorite? Well, Jack Shore looked minus 2,000 pretty much. And I believe he hurt his arm as well. He was talking about he hurt his bicep 2 weeks prior to the performance. And he still went out there and pitched a shutout. And I also had Jack Shore win inside the distance, half a unit, minus 110 there. So close. He had the sub so close. He kind of just let it go for some reason. But other than that, I had Molly McCann by decision, plus 155, half a unit on that. That was nice. Jourdain Erosa fight doesn't go to decision, 2 units on that. My second biggest play of the night, and I was getting very worried that was not going to finish. And then those were the 3 wins, and then a couple sprinkles. I had Till by KO, which we got dominated in that fight, but I thought as the fight would go on, Brunson would tire, and Brunson did get hurt at one point, but Brunson was able to take him down, get right in him out, and finish the fight shortly after. I'm not mad about that shot. I love the price. It got plus 220 for the knockout. But yeah, Brunson looked phenomenal. And it kind of played out how I thought. I thought Brunson would be winning minutes up until Till would, get the knockout. But Brunson just put on a crazy performance. I can't wait to see what Brunson does next. Other than that, I had 2 little sprinkles, a quarter unit on each. Barriot wins by KO in round 2 and round 3. Not mad at it. Barriot fought for my money. He went out there and he tried to get the finish. It wasn't like he was running around in the 3rd round. He was trying to knock him out. So other than that, was up plus 1.68 units. Solid night. And then on top of that, hit the Hail Mary parlay 5-legger. Lots of violence involved in it. Till Brunson fight doesn't go to decision. Spivak Aspinall fight doesn't go to decision. Vendermini Pimblett fight doesn't go to decision. Jourdain Rosa fight doesn't go to decision. And then Jack Shore straight for plus 457. So that was nice as well. And on DraftKings, I was so close to a takedown. I just needed Till or Brunson to score less than, I think, 87 points, 86 points. And then Brunson obviously went out there and put up a huge score. And still, I was less than 2 points away. I needed, a Roundtree over Molly McCann for the takedown as well. So very close on DraftKings. But as far as a betting standpoint, it did do fairly well. And the picks were fairly, I think we both went 7-2 on our picks, which is, pretty good on a card where a lot of fights could have went either way. So yeah, I mean, hopefully keep the momentum rolling, starting off the new month, me and you both on a positive note. And looking forward to it. So I do want to shout out the chat before we move forward here. We have, hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, Claps, Chris, the Gaming Wolf, Bonku, Mark, we have Dream Sick, we have Zor in the chat, Sean, Melon, a bunch of you guys were killing the chat before the show even started. Asphalt as well, DPS, Who else we got up in here? Geraldo Hernandez, what is up? Chris in the chat as well. Buffalo on the beat. The other Chris, Dave, Tristan, thank you guys so much for hanging out. Really do appreciate it. If you guys can all hit the like, that'd be much, much appreciated. I see you in there as well. General taking notes as always. All right. So I say we do get started, Uncle Weezy. And how about we start with the best fight on the entire card, the fight that everybody's looking forward to, and it's going to be Emily Spitfire Whitmiere going against Hannah Goldie. Whitmiere, she is 30 years old, 5'5", 63-inch reach, going against Hannah Goldie, 29 years old, 5'4", with a 61-inch reach. Emily Whitmiere, she lost to Jillian Robertson by submission, had a decision win over Jamie Moyle, a submission win over Alexandra Albu, a submission loss to Amanda Ribas, and then a submission loss against Polyana Viana. As far as Hannah Goldie, she did make her UFC debut over Miranda Granger, lost it by decision. Prior to that, she won on the Contender Series by decision, and then she just, as of recently, lost by decision to Diana Belbita. So, Uncle Weezy, I know you are really looking forward to this fight. Anything sticking out to you on this one?
Oh, God, anything sticking out other than how terrible of a fight this is? First of all, we got a birthday in the chat, Brady. I don't know. It's our guy Mystic Sosa's birthday today. Did you know that, man? So, happy birthday to our guy Mystic Sosa, one of the guys that's always in here hanging out with us.
There he is.
I think that's probably more important than talking about this fight. But I do have a ton of numbers on it, so let's just go through them real quick here. The measurables super close. They're within a year of each other, within an inch of each other. Whitmiere's got a 2-inch reach advantage here. If you look at the pro experience, within one fight of each other, within 30 minutes of each other in pro cage time, about 6 months difference in the length of career. So very similar. It's just that Whitmiere's fought a little bit higher of a percentage of her career at the UFC level than Goldie. Neither one of these ladies is finishers. Whitmiere, 4 pro wins, only one of them inside the distance by submission. And Hannah Goldie in 5 pro wins, only 1 win by KO. So in these ladies' 9 professional wins, only 2 of them have come inside the distance. So that's probably something that's telling us that, it's probably going to go to decision. But then the problem with that is that we see Emily Whitmiere's got 4 pro losses, and all of those are inside the distance, all of them by submission. But Hannah Goldie's never subbed anybody. But I don't even know if she needs to sub somebody, because it looks like whenever Emily gets in trouble, she finds a way to find that door, and quick. And that's evidenced by 100% finish rate in her losses. So Hannah Goldie's never been finished. If we look at the striking numbers, what really sticks out is Emily Whitmiere. I'd say that she couldn't hit water if she fell out of a boat, but I think it's even a lower percentage than that. Well, maybe we'll say that she can't hit the broadside of a barn. 30.96%, striking percentage. It's below 31%, almost below Roxanne Modafferi range, which is really like the high 29s. So this is about as bad as it gets for striking accuracy. Goldie's landing more strikes than she absorbs, though. She's landing 6.4 and only absorbing 5.2 in her 3 UFC fights. So that's pretty good. At least she's landing more than she absorbs, because Whitmiere's, taking in more than she dishes out at 3.324 and 3.77 against. Whitmiere's fights are taking place about 2/3 of the time in control time positions, while for Goldie, it's much less than that. It's less than 1/5. I'd say that Whitmiere's probably fought the better brand of competition, having fought Jillian Robertson, Amanda Ribas, Polyana Viana. Hannah Goldie lost her debut to Jillian Robertson as well, but Whitmiere was subbed by Robinson, and Goldie went the distance with her. So, the MMA math favors Goldie just a little bit here. This is a pretty low-level fight. I'm going to be staying away from it, I think. If I were leaning Goldie, I'd probably pick her inside the distance to get a little extra juice on that line, because Whitmiere has been finished in all of her losses. But this is a tough one to call, man. It's really low level, and I don't see either one of these ladies having a skill set that jumps off the page enough for me to be able to just pick them, other than just saying, maybe I'm picking against Whitmiere because we've seen less from her in the UFC cage than we have from Goldie. But I don't like to pick against fighters. I like to actually bet on the fighter that I think is going to win, instead of just betting against the fighter that I think is going to lose. So yeah, probably staying away from this one. You got any kind of a read on it?
A little bit, and I do like Hannah Goldie. She's going to have the striking advantage, like you mentioned. And one thing that I did notice was Hannah Goldie has a 61-inch reach, and in her debut against Miranda Granger, Granger had a 68-inch reach, and then Balbita had a 68-inch reach as well. Whitmiere here, she's only going to have a 63-inch reach, so a little bit less than she's used to. And like you mentioned, Whitmiere, 30% striking accuracy. I actually favor Goldie on the feet by quite a bit. She's actually a decent striker. She throws a lot. She does a lot. Decent combinations as well. So I do favor Goldie on the feet. And when it does get to the mat, Whitmiere is a decent grappler, decent wrestler. But man, she makes so many mistakes on the mat. She will at times just get put in so many bad positions and just tap out instantly. You mentioned it. She's got submitted 4 times. She was also ground and pounded by Roxanne Modafferi on The Ultimate Fighter as well. And I don't know. I just feel like she kind of quits in there at times when things get tough. I like Goldie here. I'm not saying I like her a ton, but I think she'll have the success on the feet. And if Whitmiere is not able to get it down on the mat, I think it's going to be a rough night for Whitmiere there on the feet. And then plus, if Whitmiere is able to get Hannah Goldie down, I think armbar from guard is live. Holding Hannah Goldie has no submissions on her record, but she just got her purple belt in BJJ, and I have seen Whitmiere tapped out a million times. So I do like the Hannah Goldie myself, and I'm actually kind of surprised at the line here. And we do see that. Oh, I'm on the completely wrong tab. And we do see that Hannah Goldie is actually an underdog. Hannah Goldie opened up plus 155. She is now plus 110. And Emily Whitmiere is minus 180, and she's currently minus 130. Yeah, Uncle Weezy, I think you might have to send the orderlies, but I think I might just end up passing myself. But yeah, underdog money on Goldie is just a little bit tempting to me. But again, I really don't want to be much invested in this fight.
Yeah, me neither, man. It's hard to jump on this one. There's 15 fights, so when things don't jump out at you, move on to the next one. And I think that's as good of a advice as I can give right now on the Whitmiere Goldie fight. Just keep in mind that if I'm not mistaken on this one, is Goldie taking this on short notice? I felt like Whitmiere had a previous opponent. Let me look here.
Yeah, she is.
Whitmiere was supposed to fight Corey McKenna,
yep.
Who's a good grappler. And Goldie's really not that. We haven't seen much in the way of takedown attempts out of her. So it's a slightly different fight for Whitmiere than what she was expecting. But yeah, so it is short notice for Goldie. Maybe that's why we're not seeing her be the favorite here. But yeah, I'm passing for right now unless I see something that really jumps out at me later on. But yeah, I'm passing.
Yeah, it's a really tough fight. I can see a situation where Emily Whitmiere has success taking down Goldie and just kind of laying on her for 15 minutes. But I can also see Goldie having success on the feet and maybe even getting a submission of some sort. But yeah. Pretty easy pass for me as well. All right, next we have a fight that I'm looking forward to quite a bit. Tony Gravely going against Nate Maness. We have Maness, who is 30 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. Tony Gravely, 29 years old, 5'5" with a 69-inch reach. So Gravely is going to be 1 year younger. He's going to have a 5-inch height disadvantage and also a 3-inch reach disadvantage as well. In terms of the last few fights, Nate Maness is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Had a knockout win over Jesse Arnett, a knockout loss to Taylor Lopoulos, a knockout win over Kellen Van Camp, a decision win over Johnny Munoz Jr. And I went back and watched that fight today, and I have no clue how he won that fight. I thought it was a pretty clear as day draw where, Johnny Munoz Jr. won round 1. Johnny Munoz Jr., I believe he lost round 2, and then Johnny Munoz Jr. won round 3. And then also he kicked Maness in the balls 3 times and also lost a point. I thought it was a draw there, and then he goes out and then beats Luke Sanders in a fight where he was losing the first round, got outlanded 30-13 in that first, and then Luke Sanders does what Luke Sanders does best and threw away the fight. He started getting reckless, and then Maness caught him on the way in, and then ended up finishing him and submitting Luke Sanders there. So yeah, Nate Maness is 2-0 thus far in the UFC. As far as Tony Gravely, I am very impressed with this guy. This guy has fought high-level competition, not only inside the UFC, but outside of the UFC as well, and we'll talk about that more. But had a submission win over Darren Mima 5 fights ago, had a knockout win over Ray Rodriguez, somebody that did go in the UFC, a submission loss to Brett Johns in what was a very competitive fight up until Brett Johns did submit him, no shame in that loss whatsoever. A split decision win over Geraldo de Freitas, and then a knockout win as of late against Anthony Burchak. So both fighters are 4-1 in the last 5 fights, and I think stylistically, Weezy, this fight's going to be very entertaining.
Agreed. I watched both of Maness's UFC fights today just to get a little more familiar with him. And the dude hits really hard, and he's really, really big for the division. I mean, he's a huge 135er. He's going to be 5 inches taller, have a 3-inch reach advantage. Gravely much more experience, almost twice as many pro fights, more than twice as much time in the professional cage, twice as many UFC fights, twice as much time in the UFC cage. Both of these guys, what I think is really interesting here, 7 combined losses from Maness and Gravely. 6 of them have come inside the distance, Brady. That's the kind of thing that jumps off the page when we're looking for violence bets. And the way that Maness hits when he's at boxing range, and the way that Gravely uses his offensive wrestling to get on top and to drop ground and pound and work submissions, I could easily see this fight finishing inside the distance. And if we look at Maness's numbers, they look really bad. He's landing 2.4 significant strikes a minute and absorbing 4.63. He's almost getting outstruck 2-1. 45% striking defense. He does have 1 knockdown in 54 significant strikes landed, so the dude does hit really hard. The numbers are more impressive for Gravely. He outlands his opponents by about 0.9 significant strikes a minute. He's got a 54% striking accuracy, which is really good. Probably a function of the fact that he's spending so much time in control time positions and throwing a lot of ground strikes, but he's showing power in his own right. He's got 2 knockdowns in the UFC and 187 significant strikes landed. Neither one of these guys has ever been knocked down. Now, we know that Gravely's an excellent wrestler, and all we have to do is look at the statistics. I mean, look at this, Brady. 19 of 35 on takedown attempts for over 50%, and then 6.11 takedowns per 15 minutes. Ooh. Absolutely dominant on the wrestling side. 40% control time for, about 17% control time against. So about a 2.5 to 1 control time ratio over his opponents. But Gravely is showing some pretty lousy takedown defense in his own right. He's only showing 53% takedown defense thus far in the UFC. He's being taken down 2.57 times per 15 minutes and being controlled almost 17% of the time. Now, if we look at Maness, as a result of that Johnny Munoz Jr. fight, where Munoz just stuck to him like glue basically the entire fight, and when he wasn't stuck to him like glue, he was just punching him in the sack. There were three fight stoppages during the fight. 1 point taken, and then 3 other points where they were in the clinch, and Maness was getting kneed in the balls, and Tyone didn't even stop the fight. So I was actually kind of impressed with Maness's takedown defense most of the time. To have that guy Munoz sticking to you for 3 rounds and to get out the other side with what should have been a draw but wound up being a win. The second and the third rounds were close, but I thought you actually could have given Munoz a 10-8 in the first, because when he got that takedown, he really dominated Maness on the ground. And that's what worries me, is that I think Gravely is going to have to work really hard to get a takedown. But I think once he does, dude, I think he's going to have a lot of success on top of Maness. The other thing I like about Gravely, he's just real smart. He knows who he is. He's well-rounded, but he's not the kind of wrestler who keeps the wrestling in his back pocket. He's really good at it. He's active with it. In 4 fights, 35 takedown attempts. That's about 9 takedown attempts per fight, and 19 takedowns in those fights, 6.11 per 15 minutes. If we look at the strength of schedule stats, they're almost identical. These guys have fought about a similar level of competition in the last 5. But I think if you go back further for Gravely, something you were talking about earlier, maybe you want to highlight this, that this guy's been fighting high-level competition, even on the regional scene. So, yeah, I do like Gravely here. I think that he's going to have success in the grappling realm. He needs to be very careful about not letting this fight stay standing for too long, because if he does, Nate Maness is super dangerous with those hands of his, and he's got a length advantage, a height advantage, a reach advantage, and a power advantage on the feet. So Gravely's going to have to go to the grappling to be successful here, but we have enough evidence that he will go to it to suggest that he should probably win this fight.
Yep, I'm definitely with you there. Before I get into my breakdown, I want to shout out a dono. Jimmy the Drunk says, shout out to the General, Alex Ramirez. I agree. Shout out to Alex. Big Show in the chat hanging out. What is up, Big Show? How are you doing? And yeah, as far as how I feel about the fight, I think it's a solid fight for Gravely. And we will take a look at the odds here. And Gravely is a minus 182 favorite. He opened up minus 225, now minus 182. Maness opened up plus 190. He is currently plus 157. I also see Gravely at minus 165 on BetMGM. Yeah, I like Gravely here as well. I'm not running to the betting window, though, because I did tape Maness, and I'm like you. I thought he had some really impressive takedown defense. I kind of watched a good probably 4, 5, 6 fights, and only really saw him got taken down outside of the Munoz fight once, and he was able to get right back up. And yeah, he's very hard to take down initially, but we saw that once Munoz actually got him down, Maness did not have much off his back whatsoever. So I kind of feel like maybe Gravely will struggle initially to get the takedown, but that's not going to stop him for shooting 5 to 10 to 15 more. I mean, Johnny Munoz, I think he shot like 16 takedowns in that fight, was able to get 2 of them. So yeah, I like Gravely here. Obviously, Gravely is a much higher level wrestler than somebody like Johnny Munoz Jr. I think Gravely is able to win minutes there, but yeah, like you mentioned, Maness is very dangerous on the feet. Maybe Gravely can get caught. But yeah, Gravely has never been knocked out, right? Is that true?
He's only been submitted. Yeah. I mean, but 5 of his 6 losses inside the distance by submission. Nate Maness was KO'd by a body kick by Taylor Lapalus.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the thing that really does jump out to me here, 6 out of 7 combined losses for these guys inside the distance. We probably will get a really nice fight doesn't go to decision line here that we might want to smash.
Yep, TJ Kill saying throughout the Munoz fight was on super short notice. Yep, I was on short notice for both guys, though. All right, so moving on. Wait, I did want to point out the level of competition. Like you mentioned, he has been submitted a ton of times, but look at who's getting submitted by: Manny Bermudez, Patchy Mix, Pat Sabatini way back in the day, Ricky Bendejos, Merab Dvalishvili, he lost by decision there. And then there was one other one that he lost by
Brett Johns, wasn't it?
Brett Johns, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, that is
elite
crazy.
Grapplers, yeah.
Elite grapplers that he's getting submitted by. And I don't think that Maness has ever had a submission off of his back, for that's worth. Yeah, I like Gravely here. I like Gravely by either maybe like a TKO. I can see a TKO or maybe a decision as well. But yeah, minus 182 it is for Gravely. That was something that stuck out to me originally. So that might be a potential play of mine. I think it's a very good matchup for him. Like you mentioned, what I like about Gravely is he fights to his strengths. He doesn't go out there and try to test his stand-up all that much, which, by the way, his stand-up is coming along. It is getting better. But to win this fight, I think he's going to have to go for takedowns early and often. I do think he does implement that game plan. So we shall move on to the next fight, a fight that should be very, very entertaining. 2 guys that I'm pretty excited to watch here. Heili Alateng going against Gustavo Lopez. We have Lopez, who is 32 years old, 5'5", 67-inch reach. Alateng, he is 29 years old, 5'5", 66-inch reach. So Lopez is going to be 3 years older and have a 1-inch reach advantage here. Taking a look at the last few fights, Lopez is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He did make his UFC debut, I believe, on short notice against Rob Dvalishvili. Dvalishvili took him down like 12 times, which was awesome for DraftKings, because I remember I was like very high on Merab. After that, he does submit Anthony Burchak and then gets knocked out by Adrian Yanez. So yeah, so both those losses in the UFC, Merab and Yanez, no shame in those at all whatsoever. As far as Heili Alateng, he did make his UFC debut, I believe, against Danat Baccarel, won that by decision, a very close fight there. Split decision over Ryan Benoit, another very close fight, and then just recently lost to Casey Kenny. Got outstruck by a ton throughout the whole fight. I'm surprised he was able to survive a lot of those shots that Casey Kenny was landing, but just showed the toughness of Heili Alateng there. So Lopez is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, and Alateng is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Seems like a pretty competitive fight here on paper, Weezy, but anything sticking out to you right here?
Yeah, this is a really interesting matchup, man. And we were talking a bit about this before we went on. This bantamweight division is so ridiculously stacked. I mean, you can't find anybody in this division that hasn't at least fought one killer, even if they're in the, bottom third of the division. Heili Alateng, has fought Dana Batgarel and Casey Kenny in 2 out of his first 3 fights in the UFC. And that's a low-level name, Alateng. And then you look at Gustavo Lopez losing to guys like Adrian Yanez, and he gets welcomed to the UFC by Merab Dvalishvili. This is a very deep division. And if you don't belong in this division, if you're really low level, you're going to get finished early. But both of these guys have got a really well-rounded game. I was really impressed with what I saw from Alateng in the Dana Batgarel fight. He showed really good conditioning, solid wrestling, and really heavy hands. And then Lopez has got a really nice all-around game in his own right. He showed incredibly heavy hands against Anthony Burchak. And, he was in that Yanez fight for a minute, it was a late finish by Yanez there. Dvalishvili couldn't finish him. This guy Lopez is extremely tough. But, if we look at the measurables, they're about the same. Alateng, 3 years younger. We got Alateng with 5 more professional fights and about 70 more minutes of cage time. But, if we look at the UFC experience, it's very similar. Both of these guys, Lopez in particular has a 92% finish rate. So that's 11 out of 12 professional wins inside the distance. So that's 6 by submission, 5 by KO. And then we look at Alateng has finished 50% of his pro wins, 7 out of 14 inside the distance, 4 by knockout, 3 by submission. Both of these guys have about a 50% finish rate when they lose. So Gustavo has been knocked out 3 times in his 6 losses, and Alateng has been knocked out 3 times and finished by sub once in his 8 losses. Alateng, really low striking percentage at 33%, so that's not good. Lopez is going to probably have the better hands here. Both of these guys are getting outstruck by an absolute ton in their fights. Alateng landing 2.87, absorbing 5.82. And then Lopez landing only 2.24 and absorbing 4.65. Lopez has been knocked down 2 times in 131 significant strikes absorbed. He's getting knocked down more than 1 time per 15 minutes. And Alateng's got a ton of power. I think what really is going to set this one apart is the wrestling of Alateng. We've got a problem here with Gustavo Lopez, and that's a 27.78% takedown defense. But we're going to have to probably dip into that just a little bit more and look at what it was in the Yanez and the Burchak fight, because anybody who fights Merab Dvalishvili is going to look like they have really shitty takedown defense, especially in a small sample size. But Alateng, you guys, is a guy who was training for the Olympics in wrestling. This guy's got a really good freestyle wrestling game. In 3 UFC fights, he's attempted 20 takedowns. He's gotten 7 of them. He's averaging 2.33 takedowns per 15 minutes and out-controlling his opponents at a 14% to about a 1/4% clip. 100% takedown defense for Alateng. So if Lopez hasn't shored up that takedown defense, he's going to probably find himself in a situation in this fight where he has a very difficult time winning minutes here. So I am kind of leaning Alateng here after I was pre-tape leaning Lopez. This is a great matchup, man. I could see this being a back and forth war, but if I'm looking at this fight based on strictly who's going to be able to win minutes and then bank rounds if they don't finish this fight, I'm looking at Alateng, a guy who's averaging 7 takedown attempts per fight, and looking at Lopez, a guy who's shown 28% takedown defense thus far in the UFC. People who think that Dvalishvili is miles ahead of Alateng and just pure wrestling, that's not entirely true. I mean, Dvalishvili might even be one of the best wrestlers in the weight class, but Alateng is just as credentialed in terms of, overall wrestling experience. He's got a great gas tank too, and he has shown a really good ability to get the fight to the ground, but not as good of an ability to keep it there as Dvalishvili. However, this guy Alateng could certainly really win minutes and bank rounds against Lopez using his wrestling here. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, you're not wrong about the credentials. I was watching one of his fights, and the announcers were talking about how Alateng actually tried out for to be on the Olympics team, and he did not make it. But just shows you the caliber of wrestler this guy is. And like you mentioned, maybe they're a little bit skewed. I mean, Rob Dvalishvili really took him down 13 times, which is definitely crazy there, and it's something I considered. We see that this fight is very closely lined, and for a very very good reason. It's about sitting at a pick'em now. We have it minus 110 each way. And that's kind of how I see it. I'm with you. I think that Alateng can have success if he does, get takedowns. I think the takedowns will be there all day. The problem is Gustavo Lopez is very, very good on the mat. I believe he's a brown belt in BJJ. I think he's finished like about half his wins by submission as well. And I have seen Aletang, my bad, put in some really questionable spots. He has been submitted before as well. So if it does go down to the mat, Lopez is not, a fish out of water down there by any means. He's very comfortable on his back. He's very comfortable on the mat. So I'm curious to see how those grappling exchanges do go. And on the feet, I do favor Lopez there just based off of the volume. Lopez is going to do more. And I know in terms of the stats here, it says that Lopez throws like 5 strikes per minute, but that's more so because Rob was taking him down for the whole 50-minute fight there. So I do like what I see from Lopez on the feet in terms of the volume, has power himself, and he really goes for it as well. But yeah, this is a very close fight. I really can see it going either way. I'm personally going to side with the Lopez side. I'm not going to bet it, not much confidence, just because I feel like he's dangerous where the fight goes, whether it's on the feet, whether it's on the mat. But yeah, this is a very good fight. I would also not be surprised if Alateng was able to, take down Lopez, stay safe on top for 15 minutes and land a big shot here or there as well. But yeah, very close fight, but a very good one nonetheless.
I couldn't agree more. This is a very close fight. And, like I said, the reason I'm leaning Alateng is because I think that he can win minutes. However, I think the fight ending power probably does lean towards Lopez. And like you said, he is good on the ground. So, Alateng will have to try to stay safe on top like Dvalishvili did against Lopez in the past. And if he could do that, he can win minutes and bank rounds and might pull out a decision here. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if either of these guys finish this fight inside the distance. Alateng broke Batgarel's orbital when they fought. I mean, that dude's face was a mess after that fight. This guy, Alateng, he doesn't throw a ton of volume, but everything he throws is with 100% power, and he's trying to knock dudes out when he's not trying to wrestle. So great fight, really compelling. Can't wait to watch this one.
Yep, 100%. Both guys hit very, very hard. I think there is a decent chance of it finishing. With us doing it this early, we do not have any of the fight doesn't go to decision numbers, but maybe the under 2.5 could be something to potentially look at here. Both guys solid finishers, and both guys have been finished several times. All right, so moving on. This is a fight that I have not looked into yet, so hopefully Uncle Weezy can give you a little bit of a better take than I have here. But we have Pandy Kianzad going against Raquel Pennington. We have Kianzad, who is 29 years old, 5'7", 66-inch reach, going against Pennington, who is 32 years old, 5'7", with a 67-inch reach. So Pennington is going to have a 1-inch reach advantage and a 3-inch or 3 age gap there. She's going to be the older fighter by 3 years. In terms of the last few fights, we have Kianzad, who is 4-1 in her last 5 fights, fighting some solid competition. Julie Avila lost by decision. Jessica Rose Clark win by decision. Betch Correa win by decision. Ciara Eubanks win by decision. And Alexis Davis win by decision. But if you take a look at the other side, Pennington, phenomenal competition. 2-3 in her last 5 fights. A loss to the GOAT, Amanda Nunes, by knockout. No shame in that. A loss to Duranami by decision. No shame in that. A split decision win over Irene Aldana. And then a decision loss to Holly Holm, and then a decision win against Mary Renault. So just although Kansas is fighting some good fighters here, and Eubanks is decent, Avila is decent, Davis is decent. Pennington is losing to fighters like Amanda Nunes. She's losing to Holly Holm. She's losing to GDR. So big difference in the level of competition here. Uncle Weezy, anything sticking out to you in terms of the numbers?
Yeah, the first thing that does stick out is that level of competition of Pennington, man. I mean, like, she's been fighting killers. And if we look at Raquel Pennington's 19 professional fights, 13 of them have been at the UFC level. And then even prior to that, she was fighting killers in Invicta. So, she's really been at the top of the game for a very long time. If we look at Panny, the experience numbers were actually the same. Panny's got one more fight in her career than Raquel does. She's only about 66 less minutes in the cage. She's got half the amount of fights that Raquel Pennington does in the UFC, about half the amount of minutes in the cage in the UFC. So, Kianzad is not inexperienced, even though she's the younger fighter here by 3 years. It's just that Pennington's been fighting a higher percentage of her pro career at the highest level. If we look at finishing numbers for these ladies, neither one of them is a prolific finisher. Kianzad, 3 finishes and 15 wins. Pennington, 36% finish rate and 11 wins. So, this is not something that's going to knock your socks off. But Kianzad has been finished in 3 out of her 5 losses. And for Pennington, it's 2 out of 8. So 3 and 2 is 5 out of 13 of these ladies' combined losses have finished inside the distance. So probably, pretty safe that this goes to decision. Neither one of these ladies has landed a knockout in the UFC, or a knockdown in the UFC, I should say. Kianzad has been knocked down. It looks like 2 times in 375 significant strikes absorbed, while Raquel Pennington, fighting ladies like Amanda Nunes, Jermaine Durandamy, Holly Holm, Irene Aldana, has never been knocked down. That's incredible. And if you go back and you watch the Alexis Davis versus Pannie Kianzad fight, I had money on Alexis Davis to win plus 350 by decision. And she fucking won that fight. I don't care what anybody says. I'm not just biased because I was holding the Davis ticket. That was bullshit. She won that fight. So we got to keep in mind that as good of a striker as Raquel Pennington is, that Alexis Davis outlanded Pannie Kianzad in their last fight. So this is something I definitely see as a striker versus striker matchup, right? But this striker, Pannie Kianzad, just lost a striking battle to Alexis Davis in her last match. And Alexis Davis's best path to victory in that fight was wrestling, and she didn't do any of it. So Raquel Pennington is a lady who uses her wrestling, and I love that, Brady. You know that, man. If you're somebody that actually has some wrestling in your back pocket, you should always be considering when you're going to use that wrestling when you're in the cage, because that's what a thinking fighter does. You have to think in there. You have to take as little damage as possible. And Raquel Pennington has 49 takedown attempts in 13 fights. She's gotten 14 of them. She's averaging over a takedown per 15 minutes. And she's right on the control time. I'd say about 47% of her fights are taking place in control time positions, while Kianzad is not nearly as comfortable on the ground as Raquel Pennington is. As Kianzad has only shot 7 takedowns in 6 fights, but she's had 19 shot against her. She's getting out-controlled 7% to 25%. So what really stuck out for me when I was looking at the numbers in this fight is, A, Pennington's fought the tougher level of competition, but nobody's saying that Kianzad has had a cakewalk thus far. But number 2, I see Kianzad having, being kind of like the classic striker here. But I see Pennington being more well-rounded. I think she's got more angles to her game, more ways to win minutes and bank rounds here. She's fought the better competition. She goes to her wrestling a lot more. She seems to be a lot more comfortable in control time positions. And most importantly, while this fight's on the feet, Raquel Pennington went 5 rounds with Amanda Nunes. She went, I think, 3 rounds with Jermaine Durandamy, and Jermaine Durandamy hits like a fucking truck. Raquel Pennington has never been knocked down in the UFC, and she has fought so many tougher strikers than Kianzad has that I got to lean Pennington here. I think she has more ways to win the fight. I think she's more experienced. I think she's fought the tougher level of competition. I think it's going to be close on the feet. But I think if Raquel doesn't like how it's going on the feet, she can go to her wrestling and find a little bit of success there, something that Alexis Davis should have done but didn't do. And I think she'll find some success winning minutes here. I think she's more well-rounded. I like Pennington here, dude.
Yeah, why didn't Alexis Davis wrestle? If she would have wrestled, it wouldn't have been up to the debate if she won the fight or not. That was really weird to me. We do have AJ in the chat. What is up, AJ MMA Betting? How are you doing, AJ? Hopefully you're doing well. Hopefully you did well last night. Also, But yeah, getting into this fight, I still have to tape it. But yeah, my early lean was actually Pennington as well. That level of competition just sticks out like a sore thumb. Holly Holm, Durandamy, Amanda Nunes are our last 3 losses, whereas Kianzad is arguably losing to Alexis Davis. I think she lost like the first round and a half against CR Eubanks. I remember Betch Correa in that fight. Correa took her down, and she was like laying on top of her, and she was having success. I forget which round it was, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Betch Correa just stands up out of nowhere and allows Kianzad to get right back up and loses the fight. And then obviously she lost to Julia Avila as well. Yeah, I got to look into this one more, but I'm definitely leaning on the Pennington side as well. I do think Kianzad is very, very overrated, to be honest. And we will take a look at the odds here. And yeah, we have a closest line fight. Pennington opened up -115. Looks like money's coming in on the Pennington side. She is now -130. Kianzad opening up -105, and she's currently +110. So yeah, definitely a potential spot there. I do see Pennington is -110 on BetMGM, -108 on FanDuel as well. But yeah, I think it could be a potential spot for Pennington. Like I like what you mentioned, the takedown numbers as well. That's definitely a route she can go, and even the striking is going to be very competitive. So and then the level of competition. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Pennington's definitely a good spot, but I do need to look into it a little bit more before I do put my money on it myself.
Yeah, man, this is a good one. Two good veterans. I mean, 39 pro fights between the two of them. Yeah, I mean, I like Pennington here. I think there's some value on that side. Penny's really good on the feet too, which should be really interesting as long as it stays standing. 79% takedown defense for Pannie Kianzad too. I didn't mention that. That's important. So yeah, great fight. But this next one, dude, this next one's super, super exciting. Can't wait to talk about this next one, man.
Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to this one for sure. We have Impa Kasanganay going against Carlston Harris. We have Impa, who is 27 years old, 5'11", 75-inch reach, going against Carlston, who is 34 years old, 6 foot, with a 76-inch reach. We'll take a look at the last few fights. Impa is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Decision win over Kalen Hill, a decision win over Anthony Adams, a decision win over Maki Patolo, a knockout loss against Joaquin Buckley in a fight that he was a pretty big favorite in, and then a submission win ever lately, as of late, against Sasha Blotnikov there. As far as Carlston Harris, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He did make his UFC debut against Christian Aguilera. I did have a bet on Carlston there, and he was able to get it done in the first round. I believe he hurt Aguilera and then submitted him shortly after. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this fight. 2 guys that I'm pretty high on. I really do like Harris. I do like his fighting style, and he fights to his strength, and that strength is the wrestling. This guy is a very, very strong, a very good wrestler, and a very good grappler going against Impa, who does a lot of things well himself. He just recently got into the game. I believe he started training MMA just 3 years ago, maybe even less. And it's crazy how much he's improved ever since then. And what I like about Impa is the volume and just how strong he is himself. I think it's going to be a very good fight, Uncle Weezy, and I'm really looking forward to watching it.
Yeah, man, me too, dude. Carlston Harris, the older guy here, the more experienced guy. He's got 10 more pro fights than Impa does. I mean, we look at Impa, his career is just under 3 years long, but for Carlston Harris, it's like around 10. So Carlston Harris has been doing this for a minute. But it's Impa Kasanganay that's got 5 UFC level fights, while for Carlston Harris, it's only 1. However, we do have to mention that he was a champion. I believe it was either in Brave or in UAE Warriors. But this guy Harris has been fighting in Russia. He's been fighting in Dubai. He's been kind of all over the world fighting a lot of really good regional scene competition. A lot of guys with some really good records. And if you watch the tape on Carlston Harris, he's the kind of guy I really love betting on because he's really good defensively. He sticks to people. He shoots for takedowns over and over again. If he doesn't get the first, if he doesn't get the second, if he doesn't get the third, if he doesn't get the fourth, he'll probably get the fifth because he's just chain wrestling over and over again. He closes distance really well. And, I mean, his striking, it looks sloppy from the outside, but it seems like if you watch the tape, as sloppy as his striking looks, that he's constantly hurting people.
Yes.
And I think that that's a function of the fact that people are so worried about him closing the distance that when he is at range, they get a little lazy because it gives him time to breathe. And then he starts hitting people then. And then you got an athlete like Kasanganay, a guy who had a 6-pack at 185 and then managed to make 170. How the hell do people do that, Brady? This guy is just his athleticism and power and just athletic ability jump off the page in just about every way that they can. Really fantastic numbers. 5 fights, 12 takedown attempts. He's gotten more than half of them. He's averaging 1.83 takedowns per 15 minutes, out controlling his opponents at a 2.5 to 1 ratio, despite the fact that they're pretty much attempting the same amount of takedowns as him. But for Carlston Harris, man, what this guy is going to do is really just absolutely blanket you. And it's just, he's kind of like a Brett Johns type, kind of like a Jack Shore type. We just saw Jack Shore last week, or yesterday at this point. It already feels like a week ago after researching 15 fights, dude. But Harris is just such a difficult style to deal with. And Impa's still new to this game. This is the kind of fight that's a really big learning experience for a young fighter. And Carlston Harris is like plus 150 here. I love this spot for Harris. I haven't bet it yet. I haven't jumped on it yet, simply because Impa is so dangerous and such a great athlete. But Carlston Harris's fighting style is so difficult to deal with. And I really could see him having a lot of success sticking to Impa, really kind of making the arms fill up with blood and just exhausting him and wearing on him, and maybe even getting a late finish here.
Yeah, it's weird you say that, because you said he's dangerous, right? And it looks like he's so dangerous. It looks like he hits very hard and he has hurt people, but it's weird. Impa has 0 knockouts on his record, which is weird, but it's something that I really like in this matchup. I guess that would be the one thing I'm worried about, but you mentioned it. Harris isn't going to give Impa really opportunities to land here much ago. I was watching some Harris fights, and there was this 5-round fight. The announcers were saying that his opponent was actually training for 5 rounds, and Harris was only training for 3 rounds. But it didn't matter. I could have swore he shot like 40 plus takedowns in that fight. If he didn't get the first, he'd go again, then he'd go again, he'd go again. He would just hold his opponent up against the cage for 5 minutes until a round's over. The round starts right away, shoots for a takedown, holds his opponent against the cage for 5 minutes, and that's how he wins fights. And when he gets you on the ground, he is very, very good ground game, very dangerous on the mat as well. Lots of finishes on his record. And Impa has not really seen anything like that. I went back and watched every Impa fight I could, and I was trying to see, has somebody really tried to take him down? And he has been taken down before. He did do a very good job at getting back up because he's so strong. But I have seen him stuck on his back at times. Buckley was able to take him down. Buckley was able to get about a minute of control time there. And even then, Harris, if Harris is able to get a takedown and Impa is able to get back up, Impa's going right back down to the mat, right? And the thing I like about Harris is there was a lot of things I like about Harris, but the most important thing is he has this wrestling heavy game plan. And we talk about how tiring wrestling is, Uncle Weezy. This guy does not slow down at all. He can attempt 100 takedowns and he does not get tired. So yeah, I love Harris in this spot. And you mentioned it. Harris is actually an underdog, which I get there's hype on Impa. I get that, but man, this is going to be a very tough matchup for Impa here. We have Impa Kasanganay open up minus 150, currently minus 133. Carlston Harris opening up plus 130. He is currently plus 113. So yeah, I'm on the Harris side. Looks like that line is starting to move as we speak, Weezy. So might have to get on that very soon.
Man,
yeah, I like Harris as well.
I like him, dude. And it's just one of those things, like, for instance, I just want to look just a little bit ahead, because this is the kind of fight that makes you grow up as a young fighter. This is something where I could see Impa getting dominated here in this fight just because of the style that Harris brings and that is so difficult to deal with. And when you see somebody doing it for 3 rounds, that's something. When you see somebody doing it for 5 rounds, it's a completely different animal. And when they go back to 3-round fights, if you think that they're going to get tired wrestling you, they're not. You're going to get tired. So I think that this is going to be a great learning experience for Impa Kasanganay, and that if he gets through this and really kind of shows a lot of poise and is able to deal with a lot of the offensive wrestling of Harris without getting frustrated, without giving up his back, which is very dangerous to do against a guy like Harris, and we'll see Impa taking that next step. But man, Harris at dog money here. I know Impa's good, but Harris is twice as experienced. He's got fantastic conditioning, and he's got an awful style to deal with.
Yep. Bond brings up the Harris has wins over Michelle Pereira and Wellington Turman. Take that however you want to. Yeah, good wins there for sure. Yeah, Harris is legit. I mean, level of competition pretty solid outside the UFC. The experience and just the style and the fight IQ is what I really do like about Harris. But we will move on to the next fight, and we have probably, a decent fight. It's a decent fight. We were supposed to see this one a couple weeks ago. Me and Uncle Weezy were, breaking it down, and somebody in the chat mentioned that it was off, so we had to cut our breakdown short. But going right back to it here, Ariana Lipski going against Mandy Bomb, my bad. Lipski, she is 27 years old, 5'6" with a 67-inch reach. Mandy Bomb, she is 32 years old, 5'6" with a 70-inch reach. So Bomb's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage, and Bomb's also going to be 5 years older. So Bomb is 5-0 in her last 5 fights. She is making her UFC debut here, going against Ariana Lipski, who is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. The decision loss to Molly McCann, a decision win over Isabella Depota, a submission win over Luana Carolina, a knockout loss to Antonina Shevchenko and Montana De La Rosa. So yeah, we looked into this fight a couple times. Uncle Weezy, anything sticking out to you on this one here?
Yeah, nothing can really stick out with the numbers for Bomb. I just had to go and watch tape on her, and I was super impressed with what I saw. And if it looks like I'm flustered right now, it's because I saw Carlston Harris at plus 150 last night, and now I see him at like plus 125, and I want to cry. Okay, but boom, Mandy Bohm, really good. I was really impressed with what I saw from her on tape. She's got a really nice jab. She's really long and really big for the division. And Lipski's a fantastic striker, but Mandy Bomb seems to be the far more well-rounded fighter here. We have seen Lipski absolutely get trapped on her back. Lipski, known for her Muay Thai style, right? Known for her power. One of the best knockdown rates in the women's strawweight division at 0.55%. 0.23 knockdowns per 15 minutes. We just don't see a lot of knockdowns in that division by somebody that's not named Amanda Lemos. So, but Lipski's got serious power for the division. But Bomb is super long. She's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. She's got a 70-inch reach. She's got a really nice submission game, a really well-rounded game on the ground, on the feet. I think she can get the fight to the ground if she wants to, because Lipski has shown terrible 42.86% takedown defense, and she's getting out-controlled 21% to 37.5%. So it's frustrating to me when I see somebody like Lipski that is good on the feet and not great on the ground. You'd like to see those control time numbers be below 33%. You want to see them 2/3 of the fight being in the striking realm, because that's how you figure they'll bank 2 rounds and their opponent will bank 1. That's how you think they're going to win a fight, But when you're seeing Lipski get dominated almost 2-1 in the control time positions, and somebody like Mandy Bohm, who has shown a really good, well-rounded game, she's undefeated, 7-0, 3 wins by decision, 2 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. So she's getting around, she can finish fights in a number of different ways. And I just, I was really impressed by what I saw with her. I think she's going to be the more well-rounded fighter. The interesting thing is that even though she's far less experienced, she is 5 years older than Ariane Lipski. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, I'm leaning Bohm here. Lipski just hasn't done enough and hasn't kept the fights standing long enough for me to think that she's going to be able to keep this one standing long enough to even have a chance here. So yeah, leaning Mandy Bohm, thinking there's some pretty good value on her at, I think, just a little bit of plus money right now.
Chris calling me out saying I just bet Carlston Harris.
Oh no.
I had to, Chris. I had to bet it right now. The line is moving.
Oh, yeah, and you better talk for a minute here, because I'm getting my bet in right now before
That's what I was doing the whole time. But yeah, back to this fight. Yeah, I'm with you here. I like Bohm as well. We do see that is a very closely lined fight. And for really a reason. I mean, it's a striker versus grappler. I'm not overly, excited about the striking that Bomb does bring, but I do think she could present some problems to Lipski where Lipski does struggle, and that is the takedown defense. We do see Bomb opening up -110. She is now -115. Lipski opening up -110, and she is currently -105. So yeah, you mentioned the 42 takedown defense from Ariana Lipski. And what is Bohm really good at? She's good at getting fighters down to the mat, and her grappling is really, really good. Really good. So, Montana De La Rosa was able to take down Lipski twice in their fight, was able to actually finish Lipski. I think that was Montana De La Rosa's first official knockout win as well, which is pretty crazy. And then prior to that, she made Antonia Shevchenko look like Khabib Nurmagomedov, took her down and finished Lipski. Antonia Shevchenko finished Lipski on the mat as well. That definitely surprised me. Isabella De Pata took her down twice. Molly McCann, the boxer, took her down twice as well. Joanne Calderwood took her down once. So she's been taken down in every single fight outside of one, and that was the Luana Carolina fight where she got that knee bar. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not like overly excited about Mandy Baum here, but I do think it's a solid matchup if she does, fight smart, go their strength, and that strength is the ground game. And I do think she will. And if she does, I think she'll have success. So, yeah, minus 108 on FanDuel, minus 105 on DraftKings. I'm not running to it like I did with the Carlston Harris, but it is a spot that definitely sticks out. And we were going to talk about it a couple of weeks back in terms of the violence aspect of things, because, I wouldn't be shocked if this fight finished and we're going to get like some very good odds on it. Mandy Bohm, solid finisher himself. And we've seen Lipski finish quite a bit of time. So I was kind of looking at the under. I forget what price it was at, but it was at some ridiculous price for the under 2.5 and fight doesn't go to decision. Baum has a 58% finish rate, 29% by KO, 29% by submission. And then Lipski, a 69% finish rate in her own right. Solid finisher. And then again, Lipski has been finished 3 times, all by knockout. So yeah, I mean, I could see Baum getting a TKO, maybe a submission win. And then on the feet, Lipski does hit pretty hard. So I'm kind of taking a look at, the under and a potentially Baum. But I think Baum's the right side here, to be honest.
I do too. And, the thing is, you look at how Mandy Baum has finished fights, and, a lot of people will think that, oh yeah, she's a grappler first. No, she's a K1 fighter. I mean, she's a kickboxer. Mandy Baum's a kickboxer. That's her base. She's just really well-rounded, and fairly new to the sport here. 7-year career, but she didn't start until she was in her mid-20s. So she definitely does have that kickboxing background. And the reason I like her here is I just think she's more well-rounded. We haven't seen any ground game out of Lipski other than that freak knee bar against Luana Carolina. So, yeah, I'm picking Baum here, and actually I just bet it for 1 unit.
There you go. Yeah, like you mentioned, Molly McCann, she's a boxer. She took her down twice. Antonia Shevchenko, she's not a grappler. But Lipski made her look like a grappler. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's definitely a solid spot there, and I can see the line moving in favor of Baum. Looks like there is some money coming on Baum as we speak as well. So we will move on. Were you able to get the Harris bet as well?
I did, man, but I'm pissed off. It was plus 150 last night, and I was like, you know what? Stat Diggers isn't until tomorrow night. Let me just kind of sleep on it. What a dumbass move that was. So, yeah, I got it at plus 120. That's criminal. It says plus 125. I mean, I think you moved it. You're betting while I'm talking, you prick.
No, I've never seen a line move so much. Like, I could have swore, like, I checked it a couple hours ago. It was still at plus 150. Like in the past few hours, it just moved.
Kasanganay has looked really good, but man, this guy Harris, 1 UFC fight, 19 fights out of the UFC, and all that tape is super impressive, you guys. So yeah, I love getting Carlston at plus money.
I love getting Carlston, and then on top of that, an underdog Carlston. Yeah, yep, sign me up there. All right, so we will move on to we have the biggest favorite on the card here, Arman Tsarukyan going against Christos Giagos. We have Tsarukyan, who is very young, 24 years old, 5'7" with a 72-inch reach. Going against Christos Giagos, he is 31, 5'10", 71-inch reach. So Arman Tsarukyan is going to be younger by 7 years. He's going to have a 3-inch height disadvantage, and he's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here. Taking a look at their last few fights, Arman Tsarukyan, he has 4-1 in his last 5 fights. So he did make his UFC debut against one Islam Makhachev. And I went back and watched that fight last night, and I was like extremely impressed with what I saw from Arman. Like, he was being, very competitive with Islam Makhachev at times. It was clear that Makhachev won the fight 30-27, but it was competitive at times. And I believe he was like 21 or 22 years old, very, very young. Making his UFC debut against a guy in that caliber. That, although it was a loss, that really did impress me. After that, he did beat Oliver Aben-Mercier, and then he beat Davi Hamosh by decision, and then he did beat Matt Favola in a fight. He took him down like 12 times. As far as Christos Giagos, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He did have a decision win over Mizitu Harada. He had a decision win over Damir Hadzovic, a decision loss to Drakkar Klose, a decision win over Carlston Maness, and then a submission win over Sean Soriano. So, yeah, like I mentioned, Sarukian is the biggest favorite on the card, Weezy, and I'll ask you, do you think it is warranted?
Yeah, I think it's warranted here. One of the spots that really just stuck out is if you watch the tape on Giagos, he's really good for about a round and a half, 2 rounds. He pushes a heavy pace, but one thing that Sarukian does not do is tire out. I could see Sarukian finishing this fight in the 3rd round here once Giagos gashes, because this guy Sarukian is just, I mean, he's looked so good. To make your debut against Islam Makhachev at the age of 21, and not only do that, but get the first takedown, and then last 3 rounds and make it a competitive fight. My jaw was on the ground. People thought that, Makhachev was going to get Sarukian out of there in the first 2 minutes. Nobody gave that kid a chance. And he took that fight on short notice and he didn't gas. It's hard to find reasons to bet Giagos here, and the conditioning is the biggest part of it. But Christos has taken a lot of fights on short notice, so maybe if he's had the time to prepare here, he won't gas like he has in the past. But Sarukian's wrestling has been fantastic. He's averaging 3.5 takedowns per 15 minutes, out controlling his opponents at a 3-1 pace. 79% takedown defense in his own right. And this guy has fought Makhachev, Auban Mercier, Ramos, and Frivola. And his takedown defense is just below 80%. He's only been controlled 12.5% of the time. There's levels to this game, and Arman Sarukian's only 24 years old, and he already looks this good. Unless he slips on a banana peel or gets food poisoning here, I just don't really see. And I'm of Greek descent. I'm rooting for Christos Giagos. I want to see the Spartan go out there and have success. 4 out of his last 5 fights in the UFC, he's gotten wins. He's a good fighter. He's got a really well-rounded skill set. Shit, man. Even if you put the grappling statistics side to side like they are on the screen there, they're pretty damn similar numbers. Giagos is even getting takedowns at a higher percentage. 3.38 takedowns per 15 minutes for Giagos, 3.5 for Sarukian. 1.54 takedowns allowed per 15 for Giagos, 1 for Sarukian. Giagos is out controlling his opponents at a 2-1 rate, but the problem is, and what I saved for last on purpose, is that Giagos has got a 50% takedown defense, and Arman Sarukian's wrestling is just too good. Yeah, man. Once Giagos gasses, I think the best way to play this, since the money line is virtually unplayable, you might as well play Giagos at plus 700, for Christ's sake. That's where the value is. But a way that you can maybe make this bettable, bet Sarukian to win in the 3rd round because, he's got the pace that he puts on. He does not get tired. Giagos, we can't say the same for. Maybe he gets him out of there in the 3rd round. But, yeah, it's really hard to find any reasons to back Giagos here.
Yep, I agree. We did a dono in the chat. What is up, Super Fights? Appreciate the dono there. Thank you for hanging out on a Sunday with us. And if you all can hit the like button, we do have 100 in here, which is pretty awesome considering the card does not start for 2 weeks. Really do appreciate you all hanging out on a Sunday. Really does mean a lot. So, yeah, it's just it's a tough fight for, Christos Giagos. Like you mentioned, the 50% takedown defense. Arman Sarukian is one of those guys that he goes after takedowns, and he goes after a lot of them. He was even going after a lot of takedowns against Islam Makhachev, and I think he even got him down once at one point. But yeah, I'm just so impressed with Arman. He's only 24 years old. I think the sky's the limit for this kid, and training at a good camp, Tiger Muay Thai as well. The striking's coming along. But yeah, I think it's a very tough matchup. You mentioned the 3rd round prop for Arman. I can see that. Giagos does slow down as the fight goes on. Remember, he slowed down bad against Carlston Maness, and Maness was able to outpoint him in that 3rd round. You cannot slow down against a guy like Arman Sarukian. He's going to submit you. He's gonna get a ground and pound victory. I like Arman Sarukian by either 3rd round or decision. You take a look at Arman Sarukian, and he's not much of a finisher, but just with how Giagos slows down with the potential pace of this fight, because there's going to be a crazy pace in this fight from the Sarukian side. I can definitely see a situation where Sarukian does get a late finish. Sarukian, 31% knockout rate, 31% submission rate for a 62% finish rate total. Giagos, a 37% knockout rate, 21% by submission for a 58% finish rate. And Giagos has been finished 5 times out of his 8 losses, 4 coming by submission. So I do think a submission is on the table. Sarukian's very good at taking the back, and I think a late submission's on the table after Giagos does slow down after the crazy pace that Sarukian does put on him. So yeah, I'm going to be looking at that 3rd round prop. Hopefully it's something good, or I think FanDuel and maybe DraftKings does this as well. They put out that 3rd round or decision prop. I think they had like Mark Onderberrio last week was like 3rd round decision plus 210, which is crazy. So if I can get a good line on like Arman Sarukian 3rd round or decision, I might take a look at that as well. So yeah, give me Sarukian though. I don't think there's much more to add. I do think he gets it done, but even like the value's all gone. We take a look at it. He is he's a big favorite, like not even parlayable at this point unless you're doing multiple legs. We see that Sarukian is now minus 700, open at minus 300. I see him at minus 800 on some books. I see him at minus 820 on some books as well. But yeah, I think he does get it done. But yeah, I think the value is clearly gone off the Sarukian side at this point.
It's just too juiced, you know. Yeah, there's a reason why the line is that wide, Brady. This kid Sarukian, man, he is something else.
Yes, I think he is the real deal. I mean, being competitive with Islam Makhachev, that's 21 years old in your UFC debut, like that's impressive to me. That is very impressive to me. But yeah, I think he gets it done. I'm curious to see who they do match up Arman Sarukian up with next. But yeah, tough matchup for Christos Giagos. And in terms of DraftKings, I think Sarukian is going to be a very solid, a very safe play with a lot of takedown grappling upside as well. All right, so we will move on. A 15-fight card. We still have quite a bit to go, and we're going to get to this next fight that I didn't look into all that much, but I do think who I'm leaning towards here. Erin Blanchfield going against Sarah Alpar. We have Blanchfield, who is 22 years old, very young, 5'4" with a 66-inch reach. Sarah Alpar, 30 years old, 5'4" with a 63-inch reach. So Erin Blanchfield is going to be making her UFC debut, but I do see on the record she has a decision win over Kay Hansen, who's in the UFC, a split decision loss in a very close fight against Tracy Cortez, somebody I'm pretty high on, and then a knockout win over Victoria Leonardo, somebody that's in the UFC as well. So looks like she's fighting some pretty good competition outside of the UFC, and yeah, definitely excited to see her making her UFC debut here. And she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. As far as Sarah Alpar, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Made her UFC debut against Jessica Rose Clark, and then she did lose that fight. I believe it was a 3rd round knockout in a fight where she got beat up bad in that fight. I do see that she did beat Jocelyn Edwards, somebody that's in the UFC by split decision as well. But yeah, 3-2 in her last 5 fights is Alpar, and 4-1 is Blanchfield. I see that Erin Blanchfield is a very big favorite. Uncle Weezy, can you kind of tell us why she's a big favorite here?
Yeah, you know, I think it's you know, she's young. She's got a really bright future, and she's shown some fantastic grappling so far. I mean, if you go back and you watch those Kay Hansen and the Tracy Cortez fights, it's very, very clear that Erin Blanchfield is very good on the ground. You could even call her, I mean, almost a prodigy. I mean, she's at the age that she's at. She's had a very impressive resume thus far. Tracy Cortez fighting up at 135 in the UFC and having a lot of success. And if you go back and you watch that split decision loss to Tracy Cortez, you could flip a coin in that fight. Blanchfield is damn good. She's fought the better competition than Alpar has. Alpar has really struggled to get the fight to the ground thus far in the UFC. Since we don't have numbers on Blanchfield, we can see that against Shanna Young and Jessica Rose Clark, Alpar in 2 fights has attempted 14 takedowns, but she's only gotten 4 of them. And those takedowns have resulted in about 3 minutes of control time. So she's not getting a ton of control time off the takedowns that she is getting. And she's actually, here's the other frustrating thing about Alpar that we've seen in the small sample size that she has in the UFC. She's out attempted her opponents in takedowns at a 7-to-1 ratio. Alpar has 14 takedown attempts. Alpar's opponents have 2 takedown attempts. Yet somehow despite the fact that Alpar has attempted 7 more takedowns for every one that her opponents have. She's getting out-controlled 37% to 15%. So there's a reason this line is this wide, and that's that Alpar kind of struggles to get the fight to the ground, but she doesn't want to be on the ground against Erin Blanchfield because Blanchfield is probably going to be far better than her on the ground. So that leaves her ass striking, which is 2.11 significant strikes landed per minute and 4.76 absorbed. And how about a striking percentage that just screams blocking punches with your face? 32.05% striking defense. Yeah, the Alpar number's not looking good. She's more experienced, but other than that, Blanchfield is 8 years younger, has a 3-inch reach advantage, has a better finish rate. She's never been finished. Blanchfield has fought the better competition. She's the better grappler, and even Erin Blanchfield, little Erin Blanchfield, who's known for her grappling, has a win via head kick knockout. So even while this is on the fight, or I mean on the feet, we could see Blanchfield having success here. It's hard to find reasons to back Alpar here, man.
Yeah, my bad, I was muted. Yeah, pretty much advantage everywhere. Striking, grappling, wrestling. I definitely get why she's a big favorite. Nick is up here saying that it's ass shaving time potentially. Potentially ass shaving. Could be. It very well could be. Yeah, we'll take a look at the odds, and we definitely see that Blanchfield is a big favorite, and rightfully so. She opened up minus 180. She is currently minus 290. Sarah Alpar is plus 155, and she is currently plus 245. And I totally get it. It's really hard to find a path to victory for Sarah Alpar. She's not going to obviously outstrike Blanchfield. She's obviously not going to outgrapple Blanchfield. She does have more experience. She has the UFC experience, but outside of that, I do think Blanchfield does come in here and get her first UFC win. Anything else to add, Weezy?
No, not on this one, dude. Yeah, this is I just haven't seen enough of Alpar to really just bury her completely yet, but I just didn't see a lot of really great wrestling, and since she wants to get the fight to the ground and Blanchfield's so good there, it might be one of those matchups where she just doesn't have any success anywhere. So yeah, I got to look a little bit further into it, but that line is really juiced. So I mean, I think I kind of missed it. I might have to just stay away.
Yeah, probably stay away. Mba's saying who's debuting, it's going to be Blanchfield making her debut there. All right. Yeah, I think at this point, yeah, minus 300 just about. I'm probably going to stay away as well. You mentioned her earlier, 15 fights. Let's pick our spots, and maybe we can find something at this next fight. And we have a good one, a very good fight. Montel Jackson, Danaa Baccarel. We have Jackson, who is 29 years old, 5'10", 75-inch reach. Danaa Baccarel, he is 32 years old, 5'7", with a 70-inch reach. Two guys that I really like. Two guys that I'm very high on, and two guys that have been making me money as of late as well. Montel Jackson, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Submission win over Brian Kelleher. Good win there. A decision win over Andre Sukumtop. A decision win over Felipe Caloris. A decision loss to Brett Johns. No shame in that. Actually bet Brett Johns as a pretty big dog in that fight as well. But yeah, no shame in that. Brett Johns is the man. And then a knockout win recently over Jesse Strader. And then as far as Danaa Baccarel, I believe he made his UFC debut against Alateng Heili. Lost by decision there. We talked about him earlier. Had a knockout win over Guido Canetti, who we saw recently. And then a knockout win over Kevin Natividad as well by knockout. Yeah, both these guys, I'm really high on Weezy. I like Montel Jackson, how well-rounded he is. I like his wrestling. I like his volume. I like his power. I like how dangerous he is. As far as Danaa Baccarel, very, very dangerous, hits very, very hard. And we have seen how hard he hits in his last 2 fights against Guido Canetti and Kevin Natividad when he knocked him out cold. So very good fight. I'm curious to see what you have for this one.
So people are saying in the fucking chat that Danaa's out of this fight. I really hope not. I hope that's not the case, man. God damn it, Gaming Wolf.
Like recently?
Yeah. Like BP's saying it. Gaming Wolf is saying it. And somebody said it in the chat earlier. I don't know if they're right. I'm doing the show, so I'm like not on Twitter. Yeah. I don't know if Marcel Dorf, sent out a tweet saying that he's out of this fight. I hope they're wrong because I really want to talk about this fight.
Yeah. That was a good
fight. These guys are so good. I mean, all these numbers just jump off the page. Look at the power numbers for Jackson. landing a knockdown on over 2% of his significant strikes landed. And for Batgarel, it's 1.83%. Neither one of these guys has ever been knocked down. They're both averaging over 1 knockdown per 15 minutes. They're both literally more than doubling the amount of significant strikes that their opponents land. Montel Jackson is getting takedowns at a 78% clip, out controlling his opponents 29% to 21%. Batgarel getting out controlled 15% to 1%. But he's just trying to box people. Really very accurate striking for Montel Jackson, over 55%, while it's just below 40% for Batgarel. Both these guys striking defense really good. Neither one of these guys has ever been knocked down. Boy, did you see anything, Brady?
No, they're saying it's JP Bays against Montel Jackson, but I don't think that's right. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, God, if it's JP Bays, man, fucking put the house on Jackson as soon as the line opens, because it's going to move only one way, dude.
Yeah, some books were saying Bays and some books are saying Jackson, so I really don't know. I guess we'll skip over it and come back, but Tapology as of now does have Jackson versus Dana.
Yeah, boy, I'll be pissed if that fight doesn't happen, because, we were talking about how stacked, bantamweight is, and here's two guys that probably aren't even in the top 20, and they're both bangers. They're both studs. We'll
skip over. I mean, best fight odds has Bays. Okay, so we'll skip over it. We'll come back to it. I want to 100% confirm it. I'll go stalk Marcel and see if I can find that. But yeah, weird. A couple of different websites, saying a couple of different things there. All right, so we'll move on.
If Jackson is fighting Bays, that'll be my ass shaving of the week. I'll even give you a sneak preview on that one, dude.
All right, we'll come back to it. I'll confirm it in a second. But okay, we have Dakota Bush going against Rong Zhu. We have Dakota Bush, who is 27 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach, going against Rong Zhu, who is 21 years old, 5'9", with a 71-inch reach. So yeah, Dakota Bush made his UFC debut against Austin Hubbard. He is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. And then Rong Zhu made his UFC debut against Cuțelaba Vargas, and then he lost that decision, and he is currently 4-1 in his last 5 fights. So yeah, both of these guys coming back for their second fight in the UFC. Yeah, Dakota Bush took that fight, I believe, against Austin Hubbard on short notice as well. I believe he won the first round, which is kind of impressive. As far as Rong Zhu, it looked like he took him like 2.5 rounds to kind of wake up. He had a very lackluster first 2.5 rounds. In the last half a round, he looked really good. It's just he looked terrible in that first round and a half. He almost got submitted in that second. He barely threw anything in that first round. So yeah, interesting fight here. Curious to see what you got in this one.
Yeah, I just watched a little bit of Rong before we went live here, and what I saw in that debut performance was a guy that was waiting to counter. He's very comfortable countering. And I don't know if Bush is going to give him the opportunity. I don't know if the Bush is the kind of go first fighter here. I think he's going to be looking for takedowns against Rong. Zhu Rong, you have to mention it here. The kid's 21 years old, but he's been fighting professionally for almost 6 years. So we do the math. This guy's taking his first pro fight at the age of 15 in China. Despite the fact that his career is 6 years long, he's got 21 professional fights. So that's about 3.5 fights per year. He's about as experienced as any 21-year-old. He's impressive, man. He's built. He's big. He's got huge legs, and he hits fucking hard. It was a pretty close fight against Vargas. I bet Vargas in that fight. I cashed that bet, but I thought Rong gave the best performance out of all 4 Chinese fighters on that card. And I think that the arrow is pointing up for him. And when we look at Bush, we know that he's got a wrestling base. The numbers aren't really there for him in the one fight against Austin Hubbard. Both of these guys, good finishers, Brady. We got an 89% finish rate for Rong. We got a 75% finish rate for Dakota Bush. And Zhu Rong has been finished in 3 out of his 4 losses. If both of these guys have been fighting fairly low-level competition, though, and the best name on Dakota Bush's resume is Austin Hubbard, and he lost to him. And, for Rong, it's Cuțelaba Vargas. Then, if you go behind that, you see some mixed martial arts standouts like Bidalaya, like Shailan Nuar Dan Dabieke, Jia Qing Han, and Hua Nixie Wusekin Bieke. So I don't know. What do we think of that? I think Rong is probably going to be a little more well-rounded here. He seems to have some decent wrestling in his own back pocket. I've seen him shoot for takedowns and get them. It's hard, man. This is kind of a low-level fight. I think Rong is pretty damn good for a 21-year-old, but and he's twice as experienced as Bush, despite the fact that he's 6 years younger. So I just think that there's a little more of a well-rounded game here for Rong, but I'm having a hard time finding my way to a bet on this one. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very close fight, and it's very closely lined as well. We see that it's a straight pick'em, -110 each way. Rong Zhu actually opened up +125. He is currently -110. Dakota Bush opened up -145, and he is currently -110 as well. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I need to tape it a little bit more, but what I saw from Dakota Bush is he is very aggressive. He has a ton of first-round finishes on his record, solid wrestler, solid grappler. And I need to tape, especially more on the Rong Zhu side. I went back and watched his UFC debut against Cuțelaba Vargas. I thought he clearly lost the first. I thought the second was close, but he was, in a guillotine for like half the round. So you got to give the round probably to Cuțelaba Vargas there. And then he really looked good in the third. I think if he comes and he fights like he did in the Vargas fight in the third round, and he starts like that right away, I think he's going to be a very good fighter. And you mentioned he's only 21 years old. That's crazy. And especially considering the level of experience or the amount of experience he has, 21 fights at 21 years old is just crazy. So I think in terms of the ceiling, I think it's, Rong Zhu has the much higher ceiling in the fight. But yeah, Dakota Bush is no slouch. He's no slouch whatsoever. Very well-rounded guy. Both these guys are very well-rounded. So it's definitely a pick them for a reason. I'm not going to give a pick on this one just yet. I do need to tape it more on the Rong Zhu side, but it's a very, very close and competitive fight on paper. And I will confirm that, Montel Jackson is going to be fighting JP Bays, which, I did see that, but I don't know why Tapology had Danab Baccarel. So I taped that for no reason. But like you mentioned, ass shaving of the week is probably going to be Jackson knocking out Bays or doing whatever he wants to him, right?
That's going to be such a shaving, dude. Montel Jackson is so good. And he's got these freakishly big hands. I know everybody talks about it, but like that dude's hands are like bigger than Francis Ngannou's. It's crazy. He's got like these freak hands. So like when he gets you in the clinch, you can't move. If he gets your wrist, your whole arm is completely useless as soon as he gets a hold of you. So he's like he's a really difficult puzzle to figure out, and Montel Jackson is really well-rounded. So not only are you going to, take a fight that's 3 levels up from where you are as a mixed martial artist, but now you want to take it on 14 days notice. Nah, that's an ass shaving.
Yeah, we see Montel Jackson is -450 against JP Bays. He actually opened up -600, and Jackson is now -450. Seems about right to me. And somebody's talking about the line. The lines are only out on Bet Online and Bet MGM are the only 2 books that have the Jackson versus Bays line. So thank you guys in the chat for pointing that out. Come on, Tapology, get it together. All right, we will move on to the next fight, and we're getting closer to the end. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights left. So 10 fights down, 5 to go. We have Joaquin Buckley going against Antonio Arroyo. We have Buckley, who is 27 years old, 5'10", with a 76-inch reach, going against Antonio Arroyo, 32 years old, 6'3", with a 73-inch reach. So Buckley is going to have a 5-inch height disadvantage, but he will have a 3-inch reach disadvantage there. And Buckley will also be 5 years younger than Antonio Arroyo. In terms of the last few fights, Buckley is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Had a knockout win over Jackie Gosh, a knockout loss against Kevin Holland, stepped in on short notice there, a knockout win against Impa Kasanganay, a knockout win over Jordan Wright, and then recently a knockout loss to Alessio Di Chirico. So what I see here is his last 5 fights have all finished inside the distance. On the flip side, Antonio Arroyo, I believe he did make his UFC debut against Andre Maness. He was on the Contender Series as well. I think he even had 2 Contender Series fights, one where he won by decision, I think, and then one where he won by submission, I believe, in the second round. But he made his UFC debut against Andre Maness, somebody that a lot of people, including me, are very high on. A very close back and forth fight, but Andre Muniz got the better of him there, and then a decision win over Duran Win. Yeah, I'll never forget this fight. I had a bet on Antonio Hoyo, and Win took him down like a good 10, 12 times. And it was so weird. Like, Hoyo could not stuff a takedown to save his life. And we'll talk about how bad his takedown defense is. But it's not only that, it's his gas tank as well. That's just terrible. And I'll be honest, I don't like this guy. I do not like this guy. He gasses out after 5 minutes, if that. No takedown defense. But I went back and watched tape on him. You know, regardless of how I feel about the guy, I think he's very talented. I think he's very good early. I think his striking is great. I think his wrestling's solid. He's a big, strong guy, and he has great grappling as well. I think he's very good, but the problem is Weezy. I think Antonio Hoyo is very good for about 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes. So that's what makes it hard about this fight here.
Yeah, there's not a lot to like about Arroyo since we've seen him get those wins on the Contender Series. It's been very underwhelming, but the fact that he didn't get finished by Muniz is actually kind of impressive. Yeah, this is a hard one to call. Both of these guys, good finishers, though. Buckley, 9 of his 12 wins are inside the distance, all of them by KO. And Arroyo, 8 of his 9 wins are inside the distance, 4 of them by submission, 4 of them by knockout. So he's an equal opportunity finisher. And for Buckley, 3 out of 4 losses inside the distance. Arroyo, 2 out of 4 losses inside the distance. So 5 out of 8 losses inside the distance if you combine for these guys. So this could be a decent spot for a violence bet, especially seeing as how hard Joaquin Buckley hits. He's landing 4.58 significant strikes a minute at 36.39% accuracy, but he's averaging a knockdown on 2.61% of his total significant strikes landed. That's 1.79 knockdowns per 15 minutes. So the guy's got a ton of power. And Arroyo has been knocked his opponents down on 0.6 of the 1% of the significant strikes that he's landed. He's showing a 70% striking accuracy, and is outlanding his opponents at a 3.08 to 1.72 significant strikes per minute ratio. So yeah, 44.58% striking defense, not impressive against somebody that hits as hard as Buckley. But the good thing that's happening here for Arroyo is the fact that Buckley's not a wrestler, because that is something that is really the kryptonite to Arroyo's game. As long as this fight stays standing, these guys are on a level playing field, in my opinion. Arroyo throws nasty body kicks. All the kicks that he throws are with 100% force and with really bad intentions. And Buckley's, has a ton of power in his hands. He throws hooks. When they land, they hurt. He's knocking people down. He's knocking people out. But I think what makes this such a compelling fight is that we're not going to really see Joaquin Buckley try to take down Antonio Arroyo. He's probably going to be the most comfortable on the feet. Only 6 takedown attempts in 4 fights, and he's only gotten 1. So I don't really see him trying to do this. Arroyo has attempted 12 takedown attempts in 4 fights. He's gotten 5 of them. He's averaging 1.4 takedowns per 15 minutes, but getting out-controlled at like a 2.7 to 1 ratio. So not really great on top. We really haven't seen him show a great ground game in the UFC. That's all pre-UFC stuff where we've seen him actually, finishing people. So yeah, it's a tough fight to call. In terms of the strength of schedule, I would probably give it to Buckley here, having fought guys like DiChirico, Kasanganay, and Kevin Holland, while Arroyo has really only had 1 tough fight, and that's against Andre Muniz. Duran Win, that's a one-dimensional wrestler. The guy's going to wrestle, and still, even though how he's going to fight and what he's going to do, you're unable to stop it. So that's your fault. Yeah, I'm leaning Buckley here just because I think he probably hits harder. He's got more power, but the longer this fight stays standing, I think it's going to look pretty even. What do we got for the odds on this one?
Yeah, Buckley is a decent sized favorite here. If I can find it. Buckley opened up as a -190. He is currently -210, and Hoyo opened up +165, and he's currently +180. And yeah, honestly, I was very tempted to not bet Hoyo, but tempted to pick Hoyo, but just after watching him, the gas tank's not there. That's my big concern here, because I'm with you. I think on the feet it's going to be very competitive. I really like what I saw from Hoyo on the feet in terms of the kicks. Very nice body kicks, leg kicks, and very nice head kick as well. And Buckley has been knocked out 3 times, and Hoyo hits very, very hard. He's a finisher, finishing just about all of his wins. But my concern is, what happens if this fight gets to the second round? What happens if, especially, it gets to the third round? Hoyo just doesn't have a gas tank. I think Buckley has the better gas tank here. And the Nick in the chat was saying, Buckley may shoot takedowns. And Ear brought up a good point that, I forget what he said, something about the grappling of Hoyo is very good. So I don't know if Buckley will want to take this down to the mat, because I think he can, but I don't know if he'll want to take the fight down to the mat, because Hoyo is very slick off his back. I mean, being competitive in the grappling exchanges against Andre Maness, that was very, very impressive. So although I think Buckley could absolutely take him down if he wanted to, I do think Arroyo is very dangerous down on the mat. So for me, from a betting perspective, I'll say dog or pass, but in terms of a straight pick, I'll go Buckley, because I can't really trust Arroyo outside of maybe a round and a half, but the cardio is what's giving me serious pause here. But in terms of like the fight doesn't go to decision, hopefully they set the over under at 2.5. The under would be a nice look, but I'm definitely thinking violence here one way or another. I can 100% see a Antonio Hoyo first round finish. And on the flip side, I can see Buckley taking over as the fight goes on and getting a late finish. And that's kind of where I'm going to make my prediction there, as a Buckley second or third round stoppage. But would it shock me if Hoyo got him out of there early? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So yeah, close fight, but I'll pick Buckley, but I'm kind of looking more at the violence aspect of things.
I think the violence look is fantastic, especially as we see 9 and 8. So 17 out of 21 wins coming inside the distance when you combine these guys' wins. So that's really good. And not only that, both of these guys have been finished in at least half of their losses. So the violence is a good look here. And like I say, both of these guys hit like trucks. So either one of them could get knocked out here. I mean, we've seen better power numbers out of Buckley, but the important thing to note here is that Joaquin Buckley's been knocked down 3 times and 137 significant strikes absorbed, while Antonio Arroyo's never been knocked down. So as powerful as Buckley is, he's also actually getting knocked down at almost a high rate as he's knocking people down. So yeah, dog or pass is kind of the way I'm looking at this one, because I don't think Buckley has enough of a grappling advantage here for him to be, around a minus 200 favorite here.
Yeah, I mean, if Hoyo had a gas tank, Weezy, I'd be betting him here if he had a gas tank, but I just know he cannot go the full 15 minutes. I mean, his gas tank is some of the worst you'll ever see for sure. All right, the general in the chat saying hit that like button if you guys can. That'd be much appreciated. Let's get those likes up. Also subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio if you have not yet. We will not be doing Stat Diggers next Sunday because we're doing it now. We're doing it a week early, and then we will obviously not have a DraftKings show this week. It'll be next week because we do have the week off this week. But yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out. About a couple weeks early for this next card, getting some early looks and hopefully beating some line movement. I think Carlston Harris may close at a favorite. I mean, that line is moving big time, so why not be shocked if that line did move? And curious to see how the lines do move throughout the next 2 weeks as well. All right, so we will move on to the next fight. I know we were talking about this one a little bit, Weezy, before we got on. Jim Miller going against Nikolas Motta. We have Miller, who is 38 years old, 5'8", 71-inch reach, going against Nikolas Motta, who is 28 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach. In terms of their last few fights, so Motta's going to be making his UFC debut, but he did have a decision win on the Contender Series against Joseph Lowry. He is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. As far as Jim Miller, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. A submission win over Clay Guida, decision loss to Scott Holtzman, a submission win over Roosevelt Roberts, a decision loss to Vince Pichel, and a decision loss to Joe Solecki. So, Uncle Weezy, what do you have for us on this one?
Yeah, this is going to be such a good fight. I can't wait. This is striker versus grappler, you guys. Nick Motta's got really good power in his hands. I mean, this guy, he looks like he's carrying a roll of nickels in each hand. When he hits people, they don't get up. His win over Cesar Balmaceda, and I think it was CFFC. Dude, he knocked this guy out with a left hook. That dude didn't wake up for like 3 minutes, and he got carried out of the cage on a stretcher in a neck brace. This guy Motta has been fighting a long time too. He was on the Ultimate Fighter Brazil at the age of 21, I think. He's got almost a 10-year career, and he's 28 years old. So Nick Motta has been fighting killers since a very young age. Obviously, Jim Miller going to be the way more experienced mixed martial artist here. 49 professional fights for Jim Miller, but Nick Motta's got 15. So it's not like this kid's just brand new to the sport. He certainly isn't. He's had almost a 10-year-long career. But the key here is 37 fights at the UFC level for Jim Miller and only one for Nick Motta. If we look at Nick Motta, 8 of his 12 wins coming inside the distance by way of knockout. For Jim Miller, 56% by sub, 13% by knockout for a 69% finish rate in his 32 professional wins. Nick Motta has been finished in 100% of his losses, and Jim Miller has been finished in 32% of his losses. So what I'm going to say here is that this is going to depend almost entirely on Nick Motta's ability to keep this fight on the feet, because the longer this fight stays on the feet, the more likely it will become that Nick Motta is going to knock out Jim Miller, because the guy's hands are incredibly heavy, and you have to have an iron chin to even stand up to 3 or 4 shots from this guy. But what we've seen from Nick Motta is that when you get him to the ground, you can finish him. He's been subbed. He's been knocked out. He's been put in bad positions on the ground. I can think of the Glyco Franca fight in the Ultimate Fighter house, where Franca stuck to him like glue for 2 rounds, got a finish late in the second round. But up until Franca finally got him down, Nick Motta was fighting out of a lot of those bad positions. And this is when he was 21 years old. You know, this was 7 years ago, where he was getting grapple fucked by Franca and still having success, still landing the heavier shots. And Franca's twice as big as him too. So, like, that dude's like a 6'1" lightweight, while Jim Miller's 5'8". So Motta will be the bigger guy here. He's going to hit way harder, but obviously Jim Miller is going to have a huge experience edge here and a huge grappling edge. This fight flat out comes down to whether Jim Miller is going to be able to get this fight to the ground or not. And he better do it early, because we're not seeing late submissions out of Jim Miller anymore. We usually see a first round submission out of him, or the fight just gets extended, and he is getting finished sometimes too. So we can see that Jim Miller has 47.56% takedown defense, and he is getting taken down a lot, but he's 43% on his takedown accuracy, and that's over a 37 fight sample size and 93 takedown attempts. So he's averaging 1.63 takedowns per 15 minutes, but he's actually averaging more submission attempts per 15 minutes than he is takedown attempts. What that tells me is once he gets to the fight to the ground, he's dominating there, because for every time that he takes you down, he's actually averaging more submission attempts than what he takes you down. So once he gets you down, you stay there, and he works for submissions over and over again until he gets them. So I am loving a violence bet in this spot, because if Miller doesn't get it to the ground, Motta's going to knock him out. If he does get it to the ground, I think we could see Miller get him out of there early. Everything is screaming violence here for me. I can't wait for this fight, and I can't wait to hear your take on it.
Yeah, violence is definitely a good look, and I went through and watched the majority of fights I could of Nicholas Motta, and I kind of looked for the same things you did. Is he going to be able to stuff a takedown? What happens if he does, get on the mat? And yeah, I saw the same things on the Ultimate Fighter. He was taken down multiple times. I saw his back get taken, and I saw him get submitted on there. But that was, like you said, he was 21 years old. That was 5 years ago. What it comes down to for me is, this is the big thing. Can Jim Miller finish the fight in the first round? If he can, there he wins the fight. If not, there's probably a good chance he loses. Like, Jim Miller has not won a fight outside of the first round in his last 11 or 12 fights. Like, the last time he won a fight outside of the first round was against Thiago Alves in November of 2016. Since then, he has 4 wins, all in the first round. Roosevelt Roberts, first round sub. Clay Guida, first round sub. Jason Gonzalez, first round sub. And Alex White, first round sub. This guy has not been winning outside of the first round. So if you are on the Jim Miller side, simply bet him by first round, maybe bet him by first round sub. If you are on the Motta side, maybe bet him straight. If you want to hedge, maybe hedge with a first round Jim Miller hedge there. I mean, if Jim Miller is going to win, Uncle Weezy, there's a good chance he's going to take him down. He's going to take his back, and he's going to choke him out. So, yeah, I got to go with Motta here. I think he's going to be more likely to win the fight. But, man, is Jim Miller going to be dangerous? And I definitely see why the line is as close as it is. It's minus 110 apiece. I mean, how many fights have we had like a pick 'em so far on a 15-fight slate? I think it's like the 5th or maybe 6th fight where it's just a straight pick 'em. A lot of these fights can go either way. But yeah, I definitely get it. I think I'm going to go with Nikolas Motta here to survive that first round. But if you do bet on Motta, you are going to be sweating that first round because, yeah, I have seen him taken down. I've seen his back get taken multiple times. Jim Miller is going to have success early. It's just he needs to survive. I'll say he does. And if he does survive, I think he's going to knock out Miller. But, man, that first round is going to be sweaty. So, yeah, I think under 2.5. Covers both sides. They're either a Jim Miller first round finish or a Nikolas Motta whenever he wants in the fight. So for me, I'm looking at the under 2.5. I'll probably stay away from the money line of Nikolas Motta here. Probably stay away from that, but I'm going to be attacking it from a violence standpoint instead, as it does cover both sides. I like that under 2.5 of whatever it opens at. I'm going to be taking a hard look at that.
Yeah, man, I'm taking a look at the under 2.5 or the fight doesn't go here. Like you say, it covers both sides. And I'm telling you, this Nick Motta is incredibly violent, and we know what Jim Miller has done on the ground. It doesn't matter if he's 38 years old. He gets you to the ground and he gets your back. You're probably getting choked out. So, yeah, great fight, great angle on the violence bet here. I'm really anxious to see where that line opens up.
Yep, going to be something I'm definitely taking a look at. Yeah, you mentioned how hard Motta hits. I went back and watched one of his fights where he dropped somebody like 3 times in one round. Like, the guy has some serious power, and I have no doubt in my mind that if he is able to survive that first round, I do think he puts out Jim Miller's lights there. All right, so we'll move on to what should be a very exciting fight for as long as it lasts. We have Ion Cuțelaba going against Devin Clark. We have Cuțelaba, who is 27 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. Devin Clark, 31 years old, 6 foot, 75-inch reach. Ion Cuțelaba, he is 1-3 in 1 draw in his last 5 fights. Submission loss to Glover Teixeira. I mean, look at this competition. Submission loss to Glover Teixeira, a knockout win against Khalil Roundtree, a knockout loss to Magomed Ankalaev, that controversial knockout loss there, and then a very convincing knockout loss to Magomed Ankalaev after that, and then a split decision draw against Dustin Jacoby in a fight where Cuțelaba goes out there and absolutely starches Jacoby in that first round, is close to getting him out of there. Jacoby's able to survive. Cuțelaba gasses out like always and drops those last 2 rounds. A draw there. But yeah, look at that competition. Glover Teixeira, Magomed Ankalaev. He's fought some good guys. As far as Devin Clark goes, yeah, definitely a lower level of competition, to say the least here. 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A decision win over Darko Stosic. A submission loss to Ryan Spann, who we're going to talk about soon. A decision win over Daquan Townsend. A decision win over Alonzo Menafield in this round. What's funny to me is you take a look at it side by side, right? Like, Cuțelaba is fighting Magomed Ankalaev, and Devin Clark is fighting Daquan Townsend. I don't know why. That's just funny to me. But, yeah, very fun fight, like I said, for as long as it lasts. Somebody very dangerous in Ion Cuțelaba. What it comes down to for me, Uncle Weezy, kind of like the last fight, is Cuțelaba going to finish Devin Clark in the first round? If so, yeah, he gets the win. If not, I have serious concerns about Cuțelaba getting it done, as the guy has no gas. So, yeah, interesting fight. What do you got for us here?
Yeah, and I think he has no gas. It's because of his style. You know, when you're offensive, I mean, he shot like 10 takedowns against Jacoby in that first round. He got damn close to getting him out of there. But, yeah, this is really hard, dude. This is really hard. I mean, Devin Clark, great wrestler. Cuțelaba, great wrestler in his own right. Both of these guys' fights take place in control time positions most of the time. But Cuțelaba, it's about 30% that he's there, while for Devin Clark, it's about 60. So actually 62%. So, the Clark does seem to be more active with the offensive wrestling, 56 takedown attempts in 11 fights, while for Cuțelaba, it's 33 takedown attempts in 10 fights. it's Clark that tries to win by out controlling his opponents and out takedowning his opponents. But here's the troubling thing. Devin Clark has 56 takedown attempts and only 13 takedown attempts against. He's out takedowning his opponents at a 7-to-1 ratio, as Clark has 21 takedowns and only 3 takedowns allowed. But he's still really only out controlling his opponents at less than a 2-to-1 ratio. So I'm not seeing the efficiency that I would like to see out of Clark, while we see a lot more efficiency out of Cuțelaba, while he's getting almost 58% of his takedown attempts, 3.69 takedowns per 15 minutes as opposed to 2.7 for Clark, and really good takedown defense for Cuțelaba at about 78%, while for Clark it's about 77%. So both of these guys are probably going to want to dominate in the grappling, but I would think that if Cuțelaba keeps this on the feet, that's where he's going to be the most successful, because that's clearly where Clark is the least comfortable. And both of these guys hit hard, but I am going to favor Ion Cuțelaba here. Like you say, the strength of schedule is better. He's got more pro fights. He's younger. He's the better finisher. Dude, 93% finish rate for Ion Cuțelaba, 33% finish rate for Devin Clark. So I can see why Cuțelaba is the favorite here, right, Brady?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense to me. His grappling defense and grappling game is good enough that we don't have to worry about Devin Clark just laying and praying easily for 3 rounds. That's not going to be easy for him here. Cuțelaba's got good takedown defense. Yeah. Now, they're light heavyweights. Whoever lands a big shot can end the fight. But I do think Cuțelaba is just a little bit better everywhere, and I'm going to be picking him to win here.
Yep, I'm going to go with Cuțelaba as well. And I think something I was interested in looking at was going to be the takedown defense of Cuțelaba. You mentioned is very good. Since I remember Glover Teixeira was like 0 for 6 on takedowns against Cuțelaba there. And after that, I remember Nchukwi took him down 3 times. But, ever since then, I don't think he's been taken down. So, yeah, very good takedown defense for Cuțelaba there. And you mentioned the takedown accuracy of Devin Clark, which is not that great, 37%, 21 takedowns successful, 56 attempted there. So, yeah, for me, what it comes down to is, can Ion Cuțelaba get Devin Clark out of there in the first round? And I kind of lean towards yes. Cuțelaba is very, very dangerous. If we take a look at some of his wins in the UFC, Khalil Rountree finished him in the first round. Nchukwi finished him in the first round. Henrique La Silva finished him in the first round. His only fight that he won and that went outside of the first round of the UFC was against Jonathan Wilson. But yeah, 3 first-round finishes for Cuțelaba. I think he does get another one here. Devin Clark, very hittable, 47% striking defense. Devin Clark, very chinny. He's been finished in all 5 of his losses. He's been hurt multiple times, submitted 3 times, knocked out twice. And I think with how dangerous Cuțelaba is, I think he has a very good chance of finishing Devin Clark early. So what I'm going to be looking at from a betting perspective, first of all, we have Cuțelaba, who is minus 135. Instead of the minus 135, I'm going to be looking at Cuțelaba inside the distance. You mentioned the numbers, right? Like Cuțelaba, 93% finish rate. I believe he has 1 decision win. And then Devin Clark has never lost a decision. All 5 of his losses have came inside the distance. So I think there's a very good chance that if Ion Cuțelaba does win, it is inside the distance, and it is inside probably the first round. So, yeah, give me Ion Cuțelaba inside the distance at plus money. I'll be waiting for that prop to come out.
Agreed. That's a great way to look at this fight. And if we add up the 11 combined losses for Clark and Cuțelaba, 9 of them have finished inside the distance. So that tells you maybe if you're a Clark fan, if you like Clark, but you're not ready to bet him, or you want more plus money, maybe just bet that fight doesn't go to decision. It covers both sides here. As Cuțelaba's been finished in 4 out of his 6 losses. And, like we say, he's got an incredible 93% finish rate in 15 losses. So, yeah, that's 14 out of 15 wins finished inside the distance. Violence is probably going to be the dish of the night when it comes to this fight, especially.
As is most of the Cuțelaba fights, for sure. You're always looking at the violence. So, all right, we shall move on to the co-main event. We're doing pretty good on time for this week. 15 fights. We're at 13, and we're at an hour 49. I like it. All right, so we'll move on to the co-main event as of now. I'm not sure if they're going to switch up the bout order. as the week does move on. But we have Tafon and Nchukwi going against Mike Rodriguez. We have Nchukwi, who is 26 years old, 6 foot with a 77-inch reach. Mike Rodriguez, 32 years old, 6'4" with an 82-inch reach. So Mike Rodriguez is going to be older by 6 years. He's going to have a 4-inch height advantage and going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. As far as the last couple fights here, Tafon and Nchukwi, I believe he made his UFC debut against Jamie Pickett, won by decision there. He had a loss to Jung Young Park by decision as well. As far as Mike Rodriguez, he has 1-3 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. So he lost to John Allen. I believe that got turned into a no contest. John Allen beat Mike Rodriguez, and Rodriguez is like minus 400 in that fight. But I don't know why it got overturned. I think maybe John Allen popped for something.
Oh,
and then
he popped for like a cocktail of 14 different performance enhancing. It was like one of the people were laughing when John Allen got caught, dude. I think he shot up like just tiger blood and then cocaine and bath salts, and then he just went out there and went buck nutty. But yeah, that's why it got overturned.
My goodness. Well, maybe that's why he won then. Tiger blood. Okay. So after that, he lost to Dong Jung by knockout in the first round. After that, he did knock out Marcin Prachnio, and then after that, he did lose by submission, a very controversial fight where he finished Ed Herman a couple times, and then it was a body shot that Ed Herman said it was a groin shot. Ed Herman comes back and wins in the 3rd round, and then, Rodriguez loses to Danilo Marquez by submission as well. Yeah, I had a bet on Mike Rodriguez thinking that Marquez was some bum, and maybe I do still think he is, but it looks like the new bum is going to be Mike Rodriguez because, man, I'm not high on Mike Rodriguez whatsoever. You take a look at his terrible, terrible takedown defense sitting at 41%. And the question I have is Tafon and Nchukwi going to wrestle? Because if he does wrestle, this is a very, very easy win for him because, man, Mike Rodriguez has no takedown defense. He has no ground game. He's been submitted several times. But, I'm curious to see if Tafon and Nchukwi comes in here with a good game plan of getting it down to the mat. If he does that, I think it's an easy win. If he does not do that, it's going to be a very close fight.
Yeah, this one screams violence, Brady. I mean, we've got 4 out of 5 wins for Nchukwi come inside the distance. The only one that he didn't knock out is like Jamie Pickett, and you got to hit that dude in the head with a shovel in order to get him out of there. Dude is notoriously tough. Even though somehow when I had money on him, he got knocked out in the 1st round by fucking Jordan Wright. But, we prattle on, we move. Mike Rodriguez, a 100% finish rate in his 11 wins. So, yeah, I believe that's 9 by knockout, 2 by submission. And then in the 7 combined losses for these guys, 4 of them have come inside the distance. Mike Rodriguez has been finished by knockout 3 times, once by submission. And, he got submitted by Ed Herman. He actually did win that fight. And by the way, it wasn't Ed Herman that said it was a groin shot. Tyone just jumped in and stopped it, saying it was a groin shot. Herman never indicated that it was. He just dropped, when Rodriguez landed that knee. So I think what's interesting about this fight and why I think it's going to end by knockout one way or the other is that we really haven't seen an offensive wrestling game out of Nchukwi yet. 4 takedown attempts in 3 fights. He's gotten 1 of them. So he's averaging 0.41 takedowns per 15 minutes, a 25% takedown accuracy in a very small sample size. But he's out controlling his opponents at a 6-to-1 ratio, despite the fact that his opponents are attempting more takedowns than Tafon. So his grappling defense has been pretty good at this point. And we know that M-Rod isn't going to try to take him down. For Rodriguez in 8 UFC fights, we only have 1 takedown attempt. So this fight's going to take place on the feet. And we know that Tafon's got crazy power, and we know that Rodriguez has got crazy power. So I got to believe that somebody is going to sleep here. I don't think we're going to see this fight go into the grappling realm because it seems to me that it's very clear that even though like Tafon might be able to win some minutes with the grappling, I don't think that's how he wins fights. I mean, this guy's just knocking people out. He's never subbed anybody, so I don't know why he'd want to try to get it to the ground. He's not all of a sudden a brown belt or a black belt. I think he can knock out Rodriguez, and I think Rodriguez can knock him out. But I think this fight's going to end up with somebody looking up at the lights and with the people who bet fight doesn't go to decision cashing their tickets. What do you think?
Yeah, that's probably how I'm going to attack it as well. You mentioned the finish rates of both. Mike Rodriguez never won a decision in 17 fights. Very impressive. 100% finish rate. Tafon Nchukwi, 80% finish rate, finishing 5 out of his 6 wins, I believe. But yeah, I mean, both guys are very, very dangerous. Both guys hit very, very hard. I think they're just going to kind of stand and bang until one man falls. I'm going to pick Tafon Nchukwi to win the fight, but I'm going to more so attack it from a violent standpoint. I do want to see the line, though. So, yeah, Tafon is a slight favorite here. Minus 135 is Tafon, open at minus 110. Mike Rodriguez is plus 115, opened at minus 110. Yeah, we see Tafon Nchukwi minus 105 on BetMGM, minus 108 on FanDuel as well. So it looks like the line is really starting to move on the Tafon side. And I get it, but yeah, I'm more so interested in the under 2.5 potentially if they do put it there, or the fight doesn't go decision. I'm with you. I think someone's going to sleep for sure. But yeah, I can't pick Mike Rodriguez. No fight IQ, no takedown defense, no cardio, no nothing. No nothing. So I'm not picking him.
Yeah, it's just these guys hit so hard. Somebody's probably getting knocked out here. The way, 82% knockout rate for Rodriguez, 80% knockout rate for Nchukwi. One of these dudes lands a head kick. I don't care how tough you are, you're going down. So yeah, this is going to be a fun one to watch. Two heavy hitters throwing everything into their strikes. Somebody's getting slept in this one.
100%. Both are very, very dangerous guys. So we will move on to the main event. Before we do so, if you guys can all hit the like button, that'd be much, much appreciated. Also subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. That'd be much appreciated as well. Me and Uncle Weezy will do a main event deep dive coming up. We'll be posting it next Monday. We're going to take the night off tonight and then come back with it next Monday there. We're going to go very deep into this fight. But here we're going to give you kind of a condensed version of our thoughts. And yeah, it's maybe not the most name value here. I mean, Anthony Smith, Ryan Spann, maybe not the most exciting main event, but I do think it's going to be a very violent main event, and that is definitely something I can get behind. Anthony Smith, he is 33 years old, 6'4", with a 76-inch reach. As far as Ryan Spann, he is 30 years old, 6'5", and he has a 79-inch reach. One thing I want to point out is how big Ryan Spann is. 6'5", going to have a 1-inch height advantage, and he's going to have a 79-inch reach, which is a 3-inch reach advantage as well. And he's also going to be 3 years younger than Anthony Smith. In terms of the last few fights, we have Anthony Smith is 3-2 in his last 5. A submission win over Alexander Gustafsson, a knockout loss over Glover Teixeira, a decision loss to Alexander Rakic, a submission win over Devin Clark, and then a knockout win over Jimmy Crute. As far as Ryan Spann, and a knockout win over Lil Nog, a submission win over Devin Clark, a split decision win over Sam Alvey, very close fight there, a knockout loss to Johnny Walker, and then as of late, a knockout win over Misha Serkinov, 4-1 in his last 5 fights there. So yeah, very fun fight here. I think it does definitely finish inside the distance one way or another, but who are you leaning to on this one, Uncle Weezy?
Yeah, so, usually after every Saturday night card, I'm working on getting the stats ready for Stat Diggers the next night, and usually Brady will ask me, after I'm done with the data entry and I've done all the spreadsheets, he'll say, is there anything sticking out to you? And the first thing that stuck out to me was violence in the main event. And let's just go over those numbers real quick here. Anthony Smith, 35 professional wins, 37% inside the distance by submission, 54% inside the distance by knockout, for a 91% finish rate in 35 professional wins. That's 32 wins inside the distance, you guys. 32 out of 35 wins inside the distance for Anthony Smith. Let me write that down. 32 out of 35. And then for Ryan Spann, in 19 professional wins, we got 58% finishing inside the distance by submission, 26% finishing inside the distance by knockout, for that would be an 84% finish rate. So that would be about 16 out of 19 wins coming inside the distance. So if we add that up, we've got 48 out of 54 wins coming inside the distance if we combine both of these guys. That is almost a 90% finish rate combined. Goodness. And then Ryan Spann is getting finished in 2/3 of his pro losses. So 4 out of 6 losses coming inside the distance for Spann. And then 81% of Smitty's losses coming inside the distance. So that is 13 out of 16
Goodness.
So we add that up, and we've got 17 out of 22 losses for these guys coming inside the distance. And then you add up Ryan Spann's 3.23% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. The fact that Anthony Smith is getting knocked down on 0.5% of the significant strikes he absorbs. Anthony Smith, a fantastic striker in his own right, landing a knockdown on almost 1% of the significant strikes that he lands. And Ryan Spann is getting knocked down about a third of a time per 15 minutes. This is fantastic spot here for violence. And then Anthony Smith is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt with a ton of submissions on his record. So, I mean, it's like 12 of his 35 wins coming by submission. So there are so many ways for this fight to finish. There are so many ways for this fight to be violent. In addition to that, it's a 5-round fight, Brady. So if they don't finish in 3 rounds, you got 10 minutes left with a couple of guys who are walking into the cage at 220? I mean, these guys are going to be tired. These guys hit hard. Both of these guys are damn good on the ground. They're both well-rounded. They both got a ton of power. Violence, baby. The question is, who wins it, dude? Who wins it?
It's tough. I mean, I'm kind of looking at it as I think either Spann early or Smith late down the stretch. Hard to definitely pick a winner on this one, and we do take a look at the odds, and I've seen people talking about like parlay Anthony Smith this week. I don't know if I do that. He's a minus 181 favorite here, opened up minus 160, and then Ryan Spann opened up plus 140. He's now plus 156. I get it. I mean, if Smith can survive like the first 2.5, 3 rounds of Ryan Spann, I think he can win. But man, Ryan Spann can definitely present some problems here with that power. Anthony Smith very hittable, absorbing 4.36 significant strikes per minute, only landing 3. So he actually has a negative 1.36 significant strike differential and a horrible 42% striking defense. Anthony Smith is very, very hittable, and you do not want to be hittable against a guy like Ryan Spann that can hit very, very hard. In terms of the takedown defense, Ryan Spann does average 1.72 takedowns per 15 minutes. He's actually a pretty good grappler himself. I was very impressed with the grappling that I saw from the Ryan Spann side, but of course we know that Smith is a very good grappler in his own right. Smith does have a 47% takedown defense. You know what? I think I'm going to take a shot as far as a pick goes on Ryan Spann to finish this fight early, but I would not be shocked if Smith was able to weather the storm and win in either rounds 3, 4, or 5. But I'm going to say that Ryan Spann does knock him out in the first, second round. Ryan Spann's going to have, a 5.5-inch reach advantage. He's going to be the bigger fighter. He hits very hard. And with how hittable Anthony Smith is and how much damage Anthony Smith has taken throughout his career, yeah, I think Ryan Spann's live here, and we're getting a decent underdog price on him. But what I'm more interested in is going to be the fight doesn't go. Hoping they open it up at somewhat of a reasonable line, and then maybe like under 3.5, under 4.5. Be looking at those as well. But yeah, I'm looking at violence. As far as a straight pick, I'm actually going to pick the dog and Ryan Spann to get it done early. But it's one of those fights where I think either Spann early or I think Smith late. So it's a tough fight to call.
I'm having a really hard time. I'm gonna have to really watch some tape and really get into it more than just looking at the numbers. But the numbers scream violence here for me. That seems to be an easy bet. But I also get the impression with 2 big guys like this in a 5-round fight with the finish percentages they have offensively and defensively, that if the bookies open this any worse than minus 300, I'd be surprised. I mean, I'd be surprised if you could get minus 250 on this or something like that, minus 275. I doubt it, man. So yeah, it's probably going to be hard to find some value on the fight doesn't go here, but it could be a great parlay piece. And I think it's a really safe bet. So if you're looking to hook up like a greasy 4-leg parlay, violence on the main event is a great start. And then you could try to find a couple of big favorites to go with it. Maybe a fight goes to decision for, I don't even know. Let's not worry about the 4-leg parlay yet. We got 13 days left till fight day. This is going to be a banger. I'm calling for violence here. I really don't even have a pick yet, though. We're 13 days out. I'm just telling people violence.
Exactly. It's a tough fight to call. It's a tough main event for sure. But yeah, I do think the line is a little bit off. But I get why Anthony Smith's the favorite. Better competition, more experience, better cardio, all that good stuff. But I will say that Spann does catch him early. But one way or another, I'm going to be looking at that violence as well and hoping they do open it up at somewhat of a reasonable and bettable line. I'm hoping it's not like something crazy like minus 600. I'd be very disappointed if that happens, but hopefully it's something bettable, you know? So yeah, that's about it, guys. Thank you for hanging out. 15 fights. We went through it pretty quickly. Thank you all for hanging out. Got it done in a very good time there. We'll kick it to Uncle Weezy first. Uncle Weezy, I know you're taking the week off in terms of doing content this week. You'll be next week, but when you do come back next week, let the people know where they can find you and what you have going on, typically throughout a MMA week there.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at MMA Weezy, and you can find me on YouTube at Uncle Weezy. I usually do my content early in the week. Besides Stat Diggers on Sunday nights and the DraftKings show on Pub Sports Radio on Tuesday nights, I will do usually 2 to 3 balls deep breakdowns of fights on my channel. And I do a full card breakdown every Tuesday night after the Contender Series called Just the Tip, where I break down all the fights on the card from top to bottom and give you my ass shaving of the week. And I've also been appearing on Z's Fair Play podcast almost every week lately. I'm probably going to be doing that a lot going forward. But yeah, you can always just catch me on Twitter if you ever want to talk fights and come to my YouTube channel. There's always new content there every week.
Sounds good. Go check them out. All right, guys, that's about it. You can check me out Twitter, DFS_numbers. Instagram is DFS by the numbers. I do post my bets there every fight day. My full card breakdown and prediction video will be out next either Monday or Tuesday. DraftKings videos as well, live stream Friday and then Saturday as well. So yeah, lots of stuff going on. Taking the week off. NFL starts, I believe, this upcoming week. I have my fantasy draft tomorrow. Looking forward to that. But yeah, NFL's back. Going to be even more busier than we already have been, Weezy. That should be fun. All right, guys, that's about it. Thank you for watching. Leave a like on your way out, and we'll talk to you very, very soon. Good luck for UFC Vegas 37. Let's win some money. See you guys.